In the beginning, the sky was completely calm, but everything changed when a giant rift opened up, revealing a celestial gate. With that, a bunch of strange things started falling from this hole that appeared in the middle of the clouds. Trash from outside civilizations and even mysterious toxic slimes emerged to change the world forever. Soon after, bizarre monsters started making nests inside these structures that fell from the sky. At that moment, humanity fell into total despair, because no one could fight against these terrible beasts. But the ruins also brought new hope, filled with shining treasures and riches. Inside these places were legendary items called relics, which were worth a lot of money. Among these objects were powerful weapons capable of finally harming the otherworldly creatures. On top of that, flying capes appeared, along with magic potions that turn ordinary rocks into pure gold. Even delicious foods with otherworldly flavors could be found by those who were brave enough. Over time, these precious items became the center of grand auctions and disputes among the wealthy. From this, a new economy emerged, and those who risked their lives became known as hunters. Touma is a 17-year-old who's part of this group, but he's just a very low level. The group just cleared one of these dungeons, and now everyone is eagerly waiting for the prizes to be divided. Carrying a giant backpack, the boy is called over by a guy who seems to be the team leader. The other warriors celebrate as they grab the best swords and new battle gear. Meanwhile, the boss complains to a food-loving colleague, saying he'll deduct his points because of the food. The protagonist spots a small vial of medicine and thinks it might cure his sister's illness. However, a bully notices the shining object and snatches it from the young hunter's hand without any mercy. Then, the poor boy gets pushed around and thrown to the ground while trying to get his treasure back. The aggressor humiliates him, saying that a simple, powerless porter doesn't deserve any reward. The other hunters agree, commenting that the boy is useless for not being able to use the items. Then, with a wicked smile on his face, the bully throws the small vial far away. Afterward, he even taunts the boy, telling him to go fetch the item like he's a beggar. The protagonist agrees with what he heard, but decides he's going to find the vial no matter what. At that moment, his eye glows with a mysterious power as he reveals he can see something. He sees a golden aura in the middle of the rubble and promises his sister that he will succeed. The scene changes to a large hospital where the boy has taken the item he found in the wreckage. There, a doctor named Gaia, who is also an elite hunter, analyzes the object the young man brought. Touma is very disappointed when he finds out the vial is just eye drops. But the doctor says the potion is incredible, and the money from its sale will help pay Suju's bills. The specialist then praises the boy, saying his talent for finding relics is impressive. The boy complains that his ability is useless if he can't find a cure for his sister's illness. What he really needs to find is a legendary item known throughout the world as the elixir. The doctor explains that this potion can cure any disease, but it hasn't been seen since it disappeared. The only clue is that it was found in the White Dragon's dungeon, a place with an unknown location. Gaia reveals that he also became a hunter to find the elixir because he feels powerless as a doctor. The disease they want to cure is a rare petrification condition that still has no treatment. Whoever is affected by this terrible ailment sees their body slowly turn to stone. Over time, the person becomes a complete statue, and this unfortunately leads to the end of their life. The girl's stone hand cracks a little as she hits the table to break something. This is Suzu, the protagonist's 14-year-old sister, who suffers from the petrification disease. At that moment, Touma and the doctor enter the room and find the girl at her desk. The young hunter becomes completely desperate upon seeing the girl using her stone hand. He yells at his sister, asking what she is doing with her afflicted arm. The young woman says it's fine and even finds it convenient, while her brother continues to freak out. The doctor asks how she's feeling, and the girl replies that the food is great. Suddenly, the girl points to her brother's chest, drawing his attention to something. She sees the sword necklace and scolds him for still keeping it, asking him to throw it away. With a blushing face, Suzu says that was 10 years ago and calls the boy an idiot. Out of nowhere, a very strong tremor starts to shake the entire room, frightening them both. The entire hospital shakes violently, and all the patients panic from the earthquake. The hero protects his sister with a strong hug until the tremor finally stops completely. Soon after, the doctor and another person look out the window and are shocked by what they see outside. A giant dungeon has just appeared in the middle of the city, and no one knows how it happened. In the sky, a creature resembling a blue dragon flies over the new mysterious structure. Gaia remembers a legend about the snow dragon and the appearance of the white dragon's ruin. Touma realizes that the legendary elixir is inside that dungeon, and his eyes shine with hope. He extends his hand toward the window, completely focused on the chance to save his sister. But the girl faints and starts to feel sick, startling her brother and the doctor, who rush to help. The boy cries out desperately for the doctor, as his sister's crisis has never been this severe. Gaia reveals that the girl is already in the final stage of the disease and doesn't have much time left. Hearing this, the young hunter is completely in shock, as the situation is very serious. The specialist apologizes and explains that he kept it a secret at Suzu's own request. The doctor continues, saying that she only acted cheerful when her brother was around. Because of this, the girl always pretended to be full of energy so as not to worry her dear brother. The protagonist feels guilty for having pretended everything was fine even though she was suffering so much. With a clenched fist, he looks at the dungeon and decides he needs to go there immediately. His sister calls him in a weak voice as he turns to run out of the room. The girl asks him not to risk his life for her sake, as she fears for her brother's safety. But he smiles and assures her that everything will be fine, promising he'll be back home soon. The boy runs down the hallway, promising that he will find the elixir and cure her no matter what. Outside, the immense blue flame dragon continues to fly over the gigantic structure. Then the young man enters the dungeon alone, which looks like an ancient temple full of pillars and ice. He finds it all very strange, as he doesn't encounter any monsters on the way and becomes suspicious. The hunter remembers all the heavy equipment he carried and believes he can handle it. With firm steps, he continues to advance alone and feels confident that he can manage. But his confidence vanishes when he finds a corridor full of hunters who have been attacked. An entire group of explorers was completely defeated, and no one survived the encounter. The boy realizes the enemy is nearby and becomes afraid of what might happen now. He feels lost in the middle of the dark dungeon, which is full of footprints everywhere. But he feels a mysterious force pulling him forward with a golden arrow on the ground. The boy realizes this is different from a normal relic, as if something is calling him. Continuing on his path, he passes a giant tentacle lying lifeless on the ground. Suddenly, a giant carnivorous plant appears behind him, ready to strike without warning. The boy is utterly terrified to see the bizarre creature right in front of him. The creature attacks him with full force, sending the young man flying through the air with a very strong blow. The impact of the attack was so powerful that several pieces of stone flew across the area. He lands in a huge room that is completely packed with monsters of all kinds. The hunter manages to land on his feet and prepares to run as fast as he can. He knows he can't stop now, because if he hesitates, it will be the end for him and his sister. Following the golden trail, he runs, dodging all the creatures trying to catch him. With great agility, the boy narrowly escapes another deadly attack from the monsters. The path leads him to jump over a giant serpent to continue his journey. With an item in his mouth, he spots his objective and runs at full speed to get there. But to his despair, the golden path leads him to a dead end with a wall. He can't believe he was led into a trap with the monsters closing in. Even so, he decides to trust the path and grabs a sharp object to use on the wall. The wall breaks and the young hunter ends up falling into a secret passage just below. Down below, two demonic dogs with enormous teeth are already waiting for his arrival. After the fall, the young hunter is exhausted on the ground, all beaten up and out of breath. But as he lifts his head, he sees a room full of treasures and a white dragon at the top. The boy can't believe he has finally found the legendary creature of the dungeon. Then, his gaze turns to the most important item, which is glowing on a pedestal. The aura of that vial is completely different from anything he has ever seen in his life. With the object in his hands, he is certain he has finally found the legendary elixir. With tears of happiness, the boy celebrates, because now he can cure Suzu's disease. However, in the midst of his celebration, a blade suddenly pierces through his body. To his surprise, the one who attacked him was Dr. Gaia, holding him from behind with a smile. The specialist praises the boy's eyes and says he's going to take the vial for himself. After thanking him for his help, the villain simply throws the wounded young man to the ground. The doctor admires the elixir with a malicious look and reveals that he has always wanted that item. Lying on the ground, Touma asks why the doctor is there and what is happening. Gaia calls him pathetic and says that people become blind when it comes to illnesses. He explains that it's easy to deceive the sick and that they pay fortunes for rainwater. In this way, he makes them work to their last breath to bring more relics in exchange for expensive treatments. With a completely insane face, the doctor reveals his true evil plan. He shouts that he never intended to cure anyone, and that he only wanted their money. The villain boasts, saying he's a genius because there will always be fools for him to deceive. Even though he's hurt, the hero grabs the doctor's leg and begs him to save his sister. Lying on the ground, the young hunter begs the villain to save his sister, and even promises to find many more relics if he just uses the medicine on her. With that, the doctor looks at the boy with a cold and cruel gaze, showing he has no intention of helping anyone at that moment. At that moment, the traitor opens his arms and imagines thousands of people crawling at his feet, begging for a chance at a miraculous cure. Holding the shining vial, the man smiles insanely, believing he now possesses the most valuable and powerful object in the entire world. He believes he will finally become a supreme god, where all desperate humans will have to worship him to survive their illnesses. Pointing his finger at the protagonist, the doctor says with contempt that saving an insignificant girl like his sister would be a total waste. At this, the hero's face transforms into pure rage and shock upon hearing those terrible words about the person he loves most in the whole universe. The villain continues, saying he no longer needs either of them and claims there will always be other suckers to serve as slaves for him. With an evil smile, the doctor warns that it's time to end this chat, while the fallen young man desperately tries to tell him to stop. Then the traitor pulls out a small dark bell from his hand and rings it, causing a sinister sound to echo throughout the dungeon's treasure room. Suddenly, several flaming beasts emerge from the shadows with glowing eyes and sharp fangs, ready to attack anyone in their path. The wounded boy watches in terror as the fire creatures slowly approach while he continues to bleed on the cold floor of the ancient temple. In that instant, the master of the monsters orders his beasts to take care of the boy and leave absolutely nothing of him behind. Obeying the command, the wolves leap at full speed toward the protagonist, who no longer has the strength to try to flee or defend himself. Desperate, the young man lets out a cry of pure rage, calling the treacherous doctor's name as he sees the end approaching right before his golden eyes. Outside, the celestial dragon continues to fly over the pyramid-shaped structure that floats in the sky, guarding very dangerous secrets. Meanwhile, at the hospital, the little girl feels her time is running out and looks at the window with an expression of great sadness and loneliness. With that, a terrible vision flashes through her mind, showing her brother fighting against the monsters, while she senses that something very bad has happened. So the little girl joins her stone hands and begins to pray with great faith, asking for any deity to protect her dear older brother. At that exact moment, the sword necklace on the hero's chest begins to emit an intense light, revealing that an ancient power is about to awaken. Even surrounded by the beasts, the boy yells that he will get the elixir back, and a red aura appears. He clutches the glowing necklace and swears he won't give up, because he needs to save his dear sister. With that, one of the fire creatures lunges forward with its sharp claws, ready for the final attack. But the hero struggles to his feet and prepares to face the entire pack of monsters. The image of his sister praying gives him strength, and he knows he must keep fighting for her. With a shout, he says she's the only family he has left, and that's why he can't be defeated there. Out of nowhere, a bright blue figure appears and speaks about the feeling we call love. A bluish energy spreads everywhere, and several dragon souls emerge around the young man. The protagonist is completely confused by the light and doesn't understand what's happening. Then he sees the spectral being standing in front of him, and the fire hounds are frozen in place. The young hunter wonders who this mysterious entity is that appeared to save him. The ghostly creature floats toward the boy and extends its hand to touch him gently. Its spectral hand touches the sword necklace that the hero has worn on his chest since childhood. At that moment, the amulet glows intensely and releases a powerful wave of golden energy. Dr. Gaia is shocked by the explosion of light and can't believe what he's seeing. To the villain's surprise, the boy stands up with a powerful aura and seems to have recovered. Then the protagonist uses an ability called Blade Creation to make a weapon. A sword of blue energy appears in his hand, and he prepares for a counterattack. With the new weapon in hand, the hero leaps toward the doctor with great speed. The villain shouts for his hounds to attack, but the beasts remain paralyzed, not moving an inch. The young warrior leaps into the air and prepares an attack against the pack of hellhounds surrounding him. With a cry of fury, he uses his new ability called Blade Creation to attack the beasts. With a single powerful strike, the boy defeats all the fire monsters at the same time with his sword. The treacherous doctor is terrified, unable to believe the boy defeated the wolves with just one attack. As the aura of power surrounds him, the hero turns to the villain with a serious and threatening look. Then, with a firm voice, the protagonist demands that the doctor return the elixir immediately. He shouts that the precious item belongs to his sister and that he will get it back at all costs. The protagonist faces the enemy with glowing eyes and orders him to return the elixir because it belongs to Suzu. On the other side, the adversary just scoffs at the situation, as the young hero quickly approaches him. With an evil smile, he says the boy shouldn't get cocky just because he found a usable artifact, and that he's just an E rank. Then the man boasts about being an A rank hunter, and therefore they are on completely different combat levels. With a look of superiority, the villain says he will show the black-haired boy the difference in power between them. At that moment, an energy forms, and the hunter reveals he assembled his equipment by tricking suckers like the protagonist. And with that, he appears wearing shining golden armor, shouting that this is his ultimate gear. However, a blast of colored energy flies at high speed toward the man in golden armor. In the blink of an eye, all his armor shatters into pieces, leaving the adversary completely shocked by what happened. The hunter panics and starts screaming desperately, asking what the protagonist did to him. Meanwhile, the young hero remains calm and still in the same spot, while the colored energy surrounds him. He then says he doesn't have time for this nonsense, and demands the elixir be handed over quietly. Suddenly, his senses begin to sharpen, and new information starts to flow into his mind. The boy finally understands how to use the object in his hands, which seems to be the hilt of a broken sword. Seeing that strange aura coming from the young man, the enemy wonders what kind of artifact he's holding. But the confusion quickly turns to greed, and he shouts that he wants that item and will take it by force. So the villain draws a golden dagger, saying it's a waste, but he'll use his 1 billion yen equipment. He reveals that the weapon is called Gluttony and is a gold rank artifact, an extremely powerful and rare item. At that moment, a mysterious voice appears next to the boy and tells him to change the sword's blade, leaving him confused. The voice explains that the current blade is made of life energy and it's a waste to keep consuming it that way. The boy agrees with the voice and then picks up a piece of rock from the ground to try his new ability. As he does, the weapon's hilt glows intensely, revealing its name as the Black Sword Aion, a legendary item. This sword's main ability is matter reconstruction, allowing the creation of a blade from any object. With this, the protagonist shouts and uses the artifact's power to create an obsidian blade from the rock. The new sharp black blade fully materializes and is called Kokuyojin, the Blade of Night. Then the white-haired spirit appears again and tells the young hero to attack with his new sword. On the other side, the hunter thinks the boy's energy has run out and asks with a mocking tone if he's already out of strength. Without wasting time, he launches a fire attack with his dagger, shouting for the protagonist to be done with. A huge wave of flames and debris rushes down the corridor, destroying everything in its path. The explosion is so large that it consumes the entire passage and heads at full force toward the young hero. But he remains calm and, with the spirit's help, prepares to counter the enemy's attack with his new blade. With a single blow, the boy launches a blue energy slash that splits the fire attack in half without any difficulty. The power of the strike is so absurd that it continues forward and even destroys the wall at the end of the corridor. The villain is completely shocked to see that the attack was so strong it blew a hole in the dungeon's ceiling. Startled, he ends up dropping his precious golden dagger on the ground, which becomes useless at that moment. Terrified and breaking into a cold sweat, the hunter is speechless before his opponent's overwhelming display of power. At that moment, the protagonist approaches. and the man offers the elixir in exchange for not being finished off right there. He then bows and hands over the item while desperately begging for his life to be spared. However, at the moment of the exchange, an evil smile appears on his face, showing that he hasn't given up yet. The villain actually tries to grab the young man's hand to steal the sword while he's distracted taking the elixir. The villain is surprised because he can't move, and his hand is caught in the protagonist's grip. The young hero says he can forgive what the man did to him, but his gaze is cold. But with his eyes glowing, he states that he will never forgive what the enemy did to Suzu. With that, the boy lands a powerful punch right in the face of the light-haired hunter. The blow is so strong that the adversary doesn't even have time to react to the surprise attack. Next, the man is thrown violently against the stone floor of the dungeon. With that, the enemy is left lying unconscious on the ground, finally defeated. Suddenly, several bizarre and terrifying-looking monsters appear out of nowhere in the area. The creatures begin to attack each other in a frenzy of total destruction. The protagonist feels his body is light and is able to dodge the attacks with ease. Floating beside the spirit, he asks who he is, and if this power also comes from him. The boy then questions the mysterious entity about the reason it's helping him. The white-haired creature simply replies that it had been hungry for a very long time. He explains that he fed on the affection between the protagonist and his sister in a flashback. With an expression of pleasure, the entity says the taste was incredible and feels great. The boy is confused and asks if the spirit ate his origami. But that wasn't quite it. He introduces himself as a Lavagan, a gourmet of love who lives to taste this feeling. The black-haired young man is even more confused by this nonsensical explanation. To consume their love, he chose the origami filled with feelings as his vessel. And with that, he decided to become the artifact that is now in our hero's hands. The boy then understands that the spirit inhabits the sword made from the origami, and the entity confirms it. With that, the creature introduces itself with a smile and reveals that its name is Aion. Aion says he is an exile from another world, and because of love, he will lend his strength. At this, the scene changes to the front of a large hospital on a sunny day. The protagonist runs desperately through the hospital corridors, hoping that she is okay. He reaches out his hand as he runs, hoping he can make it in time to save her. Finally, he reaches the door of the room and stops abruptly as he shouts Suzu's name. His yellow eyes widen in panic at the scene that awaits him inside. His sister Suzu is completely petrified, like a statue on the hospital bed. The boy walks slowly to the bed, his legs trembling, unable to believe what he sees. Very carefully, he reaches out and touches his dear sister's stone body. A tear rolls down his eye as he realizes her body is completely cold. In desperation, he tries to give the elixir to the petrified girl, but the liquid just runs down. The young hero begs for the elixir to work and cure his sister somehow. More tears fall from his eyes as he continues to plead for the girl's cure. He then asks her to call him Big Brother. Just one more time, please. At that moment, an intense light begins to shine from the girl's petrified body. Suzu's eye, which was once stone, seems to be slowly returning to normal. She then opens her eyes and looks directly at her brother, who is in shock. The girl finally calls him Big Brother, and he can't hold back his tears. With tears in his eyes, the young hero hugs his sister tightly and calls her name. She then returns the hug, and the boy thanks the heavens that she is finally okay. Meanwhile, Aion takes advantage of the moment and absorbs all their love energy. The spirit then holds a small pink sphere of energy that represents this feeling. At this, he says that it is precious and sweet like a dream, and feels like he's on cloud 9. He comments that this is what it means to live, and that it is a feeling his civilization abandoned. The white-haired creature observes the siblings and concludes that love is very beautiful. Next, the entity consumes the energy he collected from the affection between the two siblings. Aion then says he hopes the boy's sister gets well soon, leaving the boy confused. The spirit asks if he hasn't noticed, and points to the girl's chest, who doesn't understand. The girl gets super embarrassed by the gesture and calls him an idiot right away. But upon looking, they realize that a part of her body is still petrified. The girl slaps her brother for looking where he shouldn't be looking. The young man wonders why only he can see the spirit, and Aion confirms he's the only one. The boy doesn't understand, because he used the elixir, but the curse wasn't completely cured. The entity explains that what they call an elixir is actually the tears of the white dragon. This item can heal injuries and diseases, but it cannot remove curses from artifacts. The protagonist is shocked to discover that his sister's condition is because of an artifact. The name of the artifact is Basilisk, and to cure the girl, they need to obtain this cursed item. Without wasting time, the young hero asks where the cursed dagger can be found. Aion says there's no hurry, as the elixir in her body will suppress the disease's progression for a few years. With a relieved smile, the boy feels more at ease knowing he has some time to solve this. His sister asks who he's talking to, but suddenly, a large energy surge appears in the city. An explosion throws the young man away, and he wonders if it's happening again. Looking out the window, the protagonist sees a giant creature flying over the city in flames. Aion then confirms that the creature is the white dragon, covered in blue flames. The spirit confirms the creature's identity as the two siblings watch in fear. He explains that the monster is the master of the ruins they previously visited. The white dragon is furious and is looking for the creator of the artifact, who is Aion himself. With a serious look, the spirit says he won't let the creature escape this time. At that moment, several strange wing-shaped projectiles fly across the city. The protagonist becomes furious and shouts that he won't let the monster destroy the city where he lives. Without a second thought, the black-haired boy jumps out the window to face the threat. With his sword in hand and covered in a blue aura, he calls Aion to battle. The entity agrees to help, as long as there is love in that place for him to feed on. Meanwhile, the white dragon continues to roar and cause destruction throughout the city. Some hunters on the scene wonder why the creature isn't harmless as they were told. Desperate, one of the soldiers shouts, asking where the S-rank hunter is to help. A subordinate informs that there is still no news from the management agency. The hunter's attacks hit the dragon but seem to have no effect on the creature. The dragon's eye glows intensely as it watches everything with fury and overwhelming power. With that, the leader of the hunters shouts for everyone to hold the front line against the attacking giant beast. At that moment, an explosion of rocks flies everywhere, and the warriors feel that the end is near. Then the monster's tail moves, creating waves of blue flames that consume the entire scene around them. In the midst of the destruction, some fallen soldiers wonder what the black-haired young man is doing just standing there. At this, the survivors look at the boy with a mix of shock and hope as they try to get up from the ground. The great beast roars and faces the humans with a look of pure malice and absolute superiority. With his back to the danger, the protagonist holds the hilt of his mysterious weapon while facing the great flying challenge. With a firm gaze and yellowish eyes, the young hero shows that he has no fear of that colossal and furious creature. But the wounded hunter recognizes him as the E-rank porter and thanks him for the unexpected help in that moment of panic. He then smiles confidently and asks the man to leave the rest of the heavy work in his hands now. Suddenly, the monster begins to charge a devastating blue energy breath in its huge and terrifying mouth. Terrified, the ally shouts for the protagonist to run, as facing that alone is total suicide and impossible to win. But the boy remains calm and states that everything is fine, as he faces the deadly attack head-on without taking a step back. In that instant, the spirit of Aion comments that he has finally found an artifact that he can truly use in this current world. With that, the young man shouts the name of his sword creation ability to try to activate its secret power and win. The other hunters watch everything with great attention, hoping for something grand to happen at that critical moment of the battle. However, everyone becomes confused and disappointed when they realize that apparently nothing changed after the black-haired boy's shout. At this, the beast starts to laugh at the situation and mocks the human who tried to challenge its power with something so pitiful and weak. At that moment, the hero stares at the silent object in his hands and realizes that the artifact seems completely useless now. The giant dragon roars as the entity orders the beast to return to the ruins from where it came. With that, a massive impact throws everyone away, and chaos takes over the place with desperate screams. At that moment, the yellow-eyed young man and his allies are on the ground trying to recover from the blow. Then the protagonist stares at the sword hilt and asks the spirit what is happening to him. At this, the white-haired creature appears calmly and suggests that the boy give up and go back to take care of his sister. But the hero is completely paralyzed and speechless at the absurd proposal he just heard from his ally. With a tired appearance, the mystical being complains that there isn't a single drop of love on that battlefield. He claims he can't fight on an empty stomach while the black-haired boy tries to convince him otherwise. Sitting and thoughtful, the exile says that emotions like fear and anger are useless to satisfy his current hunger. The boy is indignant and wonders if this is really the best time for the spirit to feel hungry. Meanwhile, the other hunters watch from a distance and wonder who the young porter is talking to by himself. The warriors' shields begin to shatter, and they realize the defense won't hold for much longer. Suddenly, the winged monster prepares for another attack, and one of the soldiers shouts for everyone to retreat immediately. With that, a brave hunter uses a powerful launcher and fires a shining projectile toward the dragon's mouth. The explosion hits the creature's face, but the attack seems to cause no real damage to the giant beast. At this, the enemy mocks the humans, calling them all annoying insects as the soldier is thrown through the air. At that moment, the hero in dark clothes desperately tries to convince the entity to help him protect the people. He notices that the mystical being's face is getting thinner and more debilitated from the lack of feelings. The young man asks what the difference is between the love for his sister and the desire of those men to protect themselves. But the spirit observes the scene and states coldly that it is just survival instinct and not pure love. With the spirit's answer, the hunter is left speechless, with a drop of sweat on his face. Suddenly, the protagonist has a revelation and shouts that what he is feeling is love. At this, the entity becomes confused and wonders what that strange smell in the air is. The young hero then takes out his phone and asks the mystical being to look at the screen. On the device, he sees a list with various types of love but doesn't understand those words. The boy explains that all of it is a collection of love, and he needs to understand this. Aion is in shock to hear that this feeling is the love of humanity. The young man shows pictures of families and says that humans love their blood relatives. He continues to show that they also love their lovers and even their friends. Their love extends even to unknown people, animals, and even nature. With this, he concludes that humans are capable of loving everything that exists in the universe. The entity is overwhelmed by the various types of love and finds the feeling new. He is ecstatic with the taste and says it is so intense it seems perverted. But the protagonist shouts that the world is overflowing with love and he can feed on it. At that moment, a massive and brilliant energy begins to fill Aion's body. With that, the spirit floats in the air, completely energized by the love of humanity. Back in the battle, a hunter wonders if this is the end as he faces the dragon. He remembers his fiancée and apologizes because it seems their wedding has been canceled. But suddenly, one of his companions throws himself in front of him to protect him. The soldier shouts angrily, saying that his friend's shield is already at its limit. The armored soldier tells his friend to shut up and leave because he has a wedding to go to. With a smile, he jokes that the groom will owe him 2 gifts, but he'll let it slide this time. With a blushing face and drooling, Aion finally understands what humanity is and the love they feel. As a devourer of love, he realizes he almost let this delicious feast of feelings slip away. With that, the young hero fearlessly jumps into the middle of the giant dragon's blue flame breath. His eye glows intensely as he invokes the power of his black and twisted blade. At that moment, the boy manages to split the enemy's fire attack in half with his new ability. The soldiers are completely shocked and speechless to see that the flames were divided. The protagonist lands on the ground with a victorious smile and shouts that his plan finally worked. Meanwhile, a lion floats and absorbs the romantic love and companionship of the soldiers present. The young hero then realizes that his blade is also being filled with all that feeling. He understands that the sword will now protect everyone, using love as its main source of power. The beast faces the boy and says it doesn't know what he's planning by turning into an artifact. But the dragon states that his ideals, desires, and freedom are not allowed in this world in any way. With that, the creature charges another blue energy ball, and Aion is called to battle once more. The entity then asks the protagonist to make the blade bigger, harder, and much sharper. So the young man runs toward the monster and uses his bladeless creation ability to counterattack. With the power of love, he uses a piece of metal to create a giant and extremely powerful blade. The new cutting steel sword is raised to the heavens and covered in blue rays of pure destructive energy. Without hesitation, the hero delivers a powerful blow that collides directly with the white dragon's attack. The boy realizes that the enemy's attack is much tougher than he expected. The giant creature then scoffs and says that the young hero's effort is useless. Seeing the situation, the hunters fire arrows and shout to protect the porter. With that, two soldiers use their shields to help the boy stand firm. But they say they're fine and shout for the black-haired young man to just run away. The dragon then prepares a shower of fireballs and calls everyone trash. The warriors look up in terror, as there is no way to block so many attacks. At that moment, Aion appears and tells Touma not to be obsessed with the shape of a sword. The hero understands that the creation ability is free and can reconstruct any material. With a furious look, the giant beast doesn't seem to like what's happening. Then the monster orders everyone to turn to ash and launches its shower of attacks. To defend himself, the boy grabs an umbrella and points it at the blue flames. As the projectiles approach, he opens the object to try to block the barrage. Thus, the young man uses his bladeless creation ability to transform the object. The item transforms into a giant shield to protect everyone from the imminent danger. His allies are shocked and wonder what that is, and if it's an umbrella. All the fireballs collide violently against the hero's improvised barrier. The creature is surprised to see that its massive attack was completely defended. Protected by the shield, the soldiers wonder if they have finally been saved. From a distance, the hunters watch the young man and wonder who that boy is. The dragon realizes Aion used his power to create an umbrella and scoffs at his master's inexperience. With that, the beast mocks the boy, asking what he can do with a broken sword like that. At that moment, the young hero orders the parts of his weapon to return to his hands immediately. He then leaps through the air with the newly formed blade, ready to deliver a powerful blow to the enemy. The boy strikes the ground with his sword, but the attack doesn't seem to cause any damage to the area. Seeing that, the giant monster states once again that the human's effort is completely useless. With a cry of fury, the yellow-eyed protagonist orders his weapon to transform into something new. The blade then bends, and the hero uses the sword to spin his body in the air with incredible agility. Now holding a different weapon, he celebrates, saying that was exactly what he wanted. With that, he strikes the new blade against one of the dragon's scales that had fallen to the ground earlier. The boy then realizes that the scales are harder than steel and has a new idea for the battle. So he uses his bladeless creation on the scale, which is surrounded by rays of pure blue energy. Pushing off with his feet, the young man leaps into the air, ready to forge his newest and most powerful weapon. With this, he creates the Thunder Blades, two swords covered in an aura of blue electricity. Aion watches everything and thinks about how the boy can fight so freely with just one piece of advice. With a determined look, the hero shouts that the impossible will finally happen at that moment. In that instant, the beast is completely shocked and calls the protagonist a terrifying child. The creature can't believe it was defeated by a mere brat on that day of battle. With that, the monster's giant body collapses lifelessly on the ground, finally putting an end to the fight. The young man falls backward, exhausted, as his new blade shatters into several pieces on the ground. The young hero is on the ground wondering what's happening, as he feels the strength draining from his body. Lying among the debris, he realizes he can no longer feel his energy, and his yellow eyes show deep exhaustion. Meanwhile, a pyramid-shaped structure floats over the destroyed city, just below a giant whirlpool in the sky. Rays of light begin to descend from the mysterious pyramid, illuminating the entire region devastated by the battle against the monster. The great winged beast finally lets out its last breath and apologizes as its body rests upon the city's ruins. Suddenly, a gentle rain begins to fall on the battlefield, and the drops shine as if they have a magical healing power. At that moment, the injured people realize their bodies are being healed, and everyone is impressed because they can move. The black-haired boy, kneeling in the rain, understands that these are the tears of the white dragon, and that the healing effect is real. With this, he thanks the dragon for having cured his sister Suzu, and feels that the elixir's effect has finally fulfilled its main purpose. The hero calls for the white-haired spirit to come back soon, but the mystical being asks the boy to wait just one more moment. Then the ally appears with a huge belly and says he will devour all the love that fills that land in that moment of peace. With the end of the combat, the soldiers watch the rainbow and are shocked because the young man really did manage to defeat the legendary creature. At this, the hunters comment that it's unbelievable that a simple E-rank porter did something so grand and heroic. The scene changes to the headquarters of the Japan Hunter Agency, where someone shouts very loudly, asking them to repeat the news. Inside the room, a fat man is astonished to hear that such a low-level hunter was responsible for taking down the white dragon. Suddenly, a person wearing wooden sandals enters the place and comments that this feat is indeed very impressive. The guards are furious with the intrusion and ask who this stranger is, who entered the director's office without any permission. The blonde intruder sits in the boss's chair with complete ease, completely ignoring the confusion around him. The owner of the room complains that that is his seat, but the unknown young man doesn't seem to care one bit about his complaints. Thoughtfully, the stranger says he felt an absurd presence coming from the dungeon and concludes that the protagonist must have a powerful artifact. With a wicked smile, the blonde man says his destiny is guiding him to something new and important. The voice in his head tells him to find the young hero, who smiles innocently, unaware of the danger. Days after the battle, the protagonist starts his new life with Suzu and is shocked by his bank statement. He can't believe it when he sees a deposit of 50 million yen as a reward for his deed. Walking through the city with Aion, he reflects that being a hunter is truly a dream job. With his eyes shining, the boy gets super excited because now he can buy good food for his sister. At this, the entity approaches and asks if this happiness is also love, making the young man embarrassed. The spirit floats while the hero walks, and this entire conversation happens only inside his mind. When he gets home, he is greeted by his sister, who welcomes him with a big smile on her face. The boy is very happy to finally be able to live a normal life with his dear sister. In a touching scene, they have dinner together as a family, enjoying the peace after so many years. Aion goes crazy over the girl's homemade food and shouts that it is full of love for him. The protagonist smiles with his eyes closed, feeling genuinely happy before starting to eat. He compliments the food, but suddenly notices that the mysterious blonde man is having dinner with them. The young man panics and wonders who the heck this intruder is in his house. The stranger just stares at him with a confident smile and a glint in his eyes, as if nothing is wrong. He introduces himself as Hojo Kyoki from the Hunter Management Agency while eating peacefully. The girl asks if he is a co-worker, and the two siblings are very confused by the visit. The boy then moves his sister away from the man and asks Mr. Hojo to go outside for a serious talk. Already outside in a playground, the hero asks the S-rank hunter what he wants with him. The blonde man directly asks the young man if he was looking for a relic. Surprising the boy, he reveals that he saw the access history on the administration's website, and that information about weapons is confidential. With this, the protagonist confirms and asks if the S-rank hunter knows anything about the relic called Basilisk. Hojo explains that he doesn't, but if the boy becomes an A-rank hunter, he will be able to see the data on the item. The black-haired boy is discouraged by how far his goal is, since he is still an E-rank. Then the man points at the young man and says he will give him the chance to take the A-rank exam. The hero is shocked by the proposal and says it's impossible because he is still too weak. Hojo explains that because he defeated the white dragon, he earned a special exception and can skip the steps. The boy thinks about the chance to get information about the basilisk and thus cure Suzu's petrification disease. But the blonde-haired hunter says there is one condition for him to give this unique opportunity. The protagonist becomes tense, a drop of sweat running down his face as he awaits the proposal. With a bright smile full of flowers, the man shamelessly asks for a loan of money. The scene changes to the young man looking at his bank statement with an expression of despair and sadness. As he runs through a dangerous landscape, he wonders where that guy gets so much money from. The blonde guy even says that his debt and the boy's savings are almost the same amount, and maybe it's fate. After the trip, they finally arrive, and the blonde-haired man announces their arrival with a victorious smile. The protagonist looks at the wooden bridge and realizes that this is the location of the selection exam. Around him, he sees several other candidates preparing for the test and feels a little intimidated. The boy observes the other hunters and notices that they all seem to be very strong and experienced. Then Hojo says goodbye with a wave and says he'll be around, watching everything from a distance with a friend. With a dark aura, Hojo's friend complains that the loan payment is 2 minutes late. The protagonist understands that this is the man Hojo borrowed money from as he threatens him. He then turns to the candidates and introduces himself as Hakogami Koya, the test examiner and an A-rank hunter. The man in glasses explains that the exam is to fill the vacancy left by Hunter Kiritani Gaia, and only one will pass. The other hunters comment on Kiritani and wonder why someone with gold relics would leave the position. At that moment, the young hero remembers the man from the dungeon and confirms that Gaia was an A-rank hunter. But the examiner states with an air of superiority that truly talented people don't need quotas to pass. With open arms, he declares that anyone who is approved by him will be promoted to A rank. The candidates get super excited about the news and celebrate, thinking it's their lucky day. From a treetop, Hojo watches everything with a mocking smile and thinks they are greatly mistaken. Hakogami then says the test method is very simple and snaps his fingers to begin the challenge. With that, a large circular arena is drawn on the ground, and all the hunters get into position for the start. He points to a 5-minute timer and says the rule is to stay inside the area without falling out. The other option to pass the test is to push him out of the arena or defeat him in combat. With a confident smile, the other competitors think the task is basically a sumo match. The man in glasses reveals that his body is just a clone, so they can attack with full force. All the candidates shout excitedly and prepare to attack the examiner's clone with everything they've got. The protagonist thinks that using his dragon scale blade is too risky in that situation, so he decides to use the cutting steel blade while the other hunters prepare their weapons. With a smirk, the examiner in sunglasses announces that the test will finally begin. In the same instant, one of the candidates charges forward, but the examiner defeats him with a single kick without any difficulty. With that, the first competitor is thrown out of the arena and eliminated from the test in just a few seconds. The other hunters are completely shocked and frightened by the absurd speed of the man in glasses. They can't believe what they saw, and one of them says he couldn't even follow the movement of the attack. The examiner then expresses his disappointment and criticizes the hunters who rely solely on their relics to fight. He cites Kiritani Gaia as an example of a hunter who thought he was strong just because he bought relics with money. Hakogami says that replacing Gaia would be easy for most of them there, but he has a much higher standard. With glowing eyes, he explains that A-rank hunters cannot fail missions because millions of lives are at stake. Therefore, he states with a serious look that he will not allow the weak to call themselves A-rank in any way. With this declaration, the other competitors become terrified and start to tremble with fear from the pressure. Back at the Hunter Agency, someone comments that it seems like no one will pass the exam once again. In a meeting room, the superiors understand Hakogami's thinking and the strict standards he imposes. The director then reveals that he has S-rank ability, but stays in A-rank, to filter the candidates who want to move up. The problem is that his filter is so rigorous that the situation becomes almost impossible for newcomers in the field. Because of this, to this day, no candidate has managed to pass the exam and become an A-rank hunter. In the arena, the onslaught continues, and several candidates are thrown away while screaming in despair. One of the hunters there praises the examiner and calls him the #1 in A-rank with admiration. Then a red-haired boy named Hayate reveals that the clone has only 1/10 of the original strength. Without wasting time, he summons a giant golden sword covered in flames and prepares to attack. The other competitors are impressed when they recognize it as a gold-rank weapon relic. The protagonist notices that the aura of that weapon is completely different from Gaia's relic. With a shout, the red-haired boy charges forward with his giant sword toward the examiner. He then unleashes an attack called Epic Poem of Heroes, which creates a large wave of energy. But to everyone's surprise, the man in glasses manages to block the attack with just a small knife. With a calm look, the examiner holds the golden blade without showing any effort. The red-haired boy is completely shocked and speechless at what just happened. The other hunters can't believe he stopped a gold relic with a silver weapon. The red-haired competitor tries to push the sword with all his strength, but the clone doesn't even move. Seeing that his normal attack didn't work, he decides he'll have to fight seriously from now on. His eyes glow with intensity as he prepares to use all his power at once. The two adversaries stand facing each other for a moment before the next move in the battle. Suddenly, the examiner simply steps out of the circle, and the others wonder why he gave up. But the red-haired boy realizes that the weapon in the man's hand is not a silver relic. He reveals that it is actually just an ordinary knife that can be bought in any store. Upon hearing this, all the other candidates' eyes widen in pure astonishment. The red-haired competitor is furious with the humiliation and shouts that the fight isn't over for him. Without wasting time, he summons a second golden sword and charges forward again with full force. With a calm look, the examiner comments that retreating is also a valid strategy in a battle. At that moment, the protagonist appears and tells the man that he doesn't seem to be running from the situation. The young hero states that he needs to become an A rank to find the relic he is searching for so desperately. With that, he holds his weapon firmly and prepares for what's to come. He states that even if the path to the basilisk is brutal, he cannot retreat. The examiner then smiles and says he feels a burning core inside that young hero. At that moment, the boy charges forward, and his sword collides with the man's knife. The clone begins to spin at high speed and unleashes a sequence of rapid attacks. Despite the difficulty, the protagonist manages to defend himself from the powerful shower of blows. He then thinks that fighting the examiner is like facing a great typhoon. The man in glasses warns that there are only 2 minutes left until the time limit ends. Despite the pressure, the young man smiles as he realizes his speed is greater than the clone's. But the examiner notices that the boy is reshaping the blade to keep up with his attacks. And on top of that, the boy hasn't let his guard down against the relics of the other hunters. He then wonders if he'll be able to draw out the young man's full potential with just a knife. With that, the clone decides to grab the weapon on his back to fight seriously. Suddenly, the protagonist is shocked to see the man's weapon covered in electricity. He tries to block the electric strike but feels an overwhelming pressure all over his body. The black-haired boy is pushed back violently by the force of the attack. He realizes his steel blade is at a disadvantage against the clone's electricity. At this, he sees his opponent's reflection in his eye and realizes he's not going to stop yet. The examiner wonders why. Even in this situation, the young man does not retreat from combat. With his spear in hand, the clone prepares for the final blow, while the hero gets back up. The protagonist thinks that Mr. Hakogami is really strong and on a completely different level. Even though he's down, he holds his weapon with determination and has no intention of giving up now. With a cry of fury, the young hero swears he will not retreat from that battle under any circumstances. The examiner watches attentively as the boy prepares to use his bladeless creation. Thus, he creates the dragon-scale blade, and his eyes shine with an immense bluish power. From a distance, Hojo wonders why the examiner drew a gold relic during a simple test. Meanwhile, at the agency, they wonder what kind of black relic the boy is using. With a thoughtful look, the director says he has a hunch about what that strange weapon might be. He then states that the black relic might be a level above gold rank, surprising everyone. Back in the arena, the two opponents face each other from a distance, ready for the climax of the final battle. The boy realizes he can no longer use his cutting steel blade in this dangerous situation. On the other side, the examiner's clone just observes the scene with a calm and very analytical look. He understands that iron attracts lightning, which is why his old blade was a terrible choice there. The hero thinks that the obsidian blade isn't strong enough, and he hasn't used the alchemy one in a long time. He knows that the dragon-scale blade can only be used at full strength just a single time. With that, the young man decides he has no other choice but to bet everything on that single blow. Without hesitation, he leaps into the air, and his sword collides violently with the opponent's electric spear. The impact of the two blows creates a golden shockwave that spreads throughout the arena. The boy thinks that even though he's dodging the lightning, each of the examiner's blows is very heavy. But he notices that the number of the clone's attacks is not the same as it was before the clash. The boy understands that because the weapon is long, it's also harder for the clone to handle. The examiner realizes that the young man's blade has changed, but he's still not attacking. Even in the small openings, the protagonist doesn't even glance for a chance to strike. With this, the man in glasses understands that he is trying to take him down with a single attack. With yellow, focused eyes, the hero patiently waits for the big opening he needs. Then the clone attacks and the black-haired boy finally finds the chance he was waiting for. But the examiner warns him not to jump recklessly into such an obvious trap. He continues, saying that this is an opportunity that simply fell into his lap. At this, the man in glasses launches a powerful electric attack toward the dark-clothed protagonist. A large explosion occurs in the distance, sending all the other candidates flying with the impact. The clone praises the boy for dodging, but says that's only allowed up to B-rank hunters. He then states that if there had been something to protect there, the young man would already be gone. The protagonist is in shock as he realizes the attack was actually aimed outside the arena. From a distance, a blonde woman calmly comments that now there are only 30 seconds left. The hero is frustrated and faces the examiner, who observes him with a look of total superiority. He then thinks that his opponent's strength is simply overwhelming, and on another level. At that moment, Aion appears and asks Touma if his sword handling hasn't gotten much worse. The spirit explains that relics operate with a special energy he calls proloma. The white-haired entity continues, saying that just holding the weapon already provides some of this energy's benefits. With difficulty, the young hero blocks another attack and realizes he is almost at his limit. But Aion explains that someone like the clone extracts the proloma from the relic itself, and with that, his physical abilities skyrocket. The young hero is thrown back by the attack and wonders if he really can't do it. The entity then asks if the boy did it again, leaving the black-haired young man confused by the question. Suddenly, a strong impact hits the protagonist squarely before he has time to react to the blow. With that, he is thrown backward and ends up spitting a little red liquid from his mouth from the force of the attack. The spirit remembers that in the fight against the doctor, the boy also managed to do the same thing as now. He then recalls that certainly back then, the young hero also did that to win the battle. The entity admits that he admires the boy's ingenuity for having defeated the white dragon without using proloma, but the white-haired being warns that this ability alone will not be enough to defeat the man in glasses. Aion says that what the examiner said also makes sense, and that the boy needs to understand the situation. At this, the clone slams his spear on the ground, creating a large wave of golden, electric energy in the arena. The mystical being asks the young man to imagine that he is fighting with his beloved sister Suzu right behind him. In his mind, he then sees the image of his sister cheering for her older brother to be okay in the fight. At that moment, a powerful golden energy begins to emanate from the entire body of the dark-clothed protagonist. A large column of black smoke rises to the sky, while the boy's bright blue aura only grows stronger. With a determined look, he prepares himself, knowing that this has finally become his true strength. The examiner observes the whole scene with a serious and somewhat surprised look at the young man's new power. With that, the hero's sword multiplies into several blades of pure blue, flaming energy in the air. Without hesitation, the boy charges forward and delivers a powerful blow that collides directly with the clone's spear. The impact of the attack is so absurd that the entire floor of the arena shatters into several pieces and flies away. The other candidates are completely confused by the shower of rocks falling from the sky. The examiner adjusts his glasses and is impressed by the young hero's power. Meanwhile, the protagonist concentrates, and his blue aura becomes even more intense and powerful. Aion then says that everything is possible in love, and that's why he is the real Touma. The boy feels his body is light, and with that he can land as many blows as he wants on the enemy. From a distance, the mysterious blonde woman just laughs at the situation with a look of pure amusement. The man in glasses wonders why the young man suddenly got stronger but doesn't know the reason. He realizes that the E-rank hunter has mastered the manipulation of proloma at a critical moment. With that, the examiner finally thinks he has found someone worthy of his attention in the arena. He then acknowledges that this boy is truly worthy of carrying the title of A rank. The exchange of blows between the two is so intense that no one can see what is happening. At the agency, they note that there are only 20 seconds left and wonder if the test will have a passer. With a serious look, the director says he has a hunch about what will happen in the end. He then states with certainty that this young candidate will manage to pass the test. The other competitors start shouting and cheering for the boy to win in the end. The timer shows that there are now only 5 seconds left until the exam's time limit. The countdown begins as the exchange of blows between the two becomes increasingly fierce. In the last second, their weapons clash in a flash of pure energy and destructive power. At that moment, Kurogane and Touma sense two separate and distinct threats approaching. Without waiting for the end of the test, the two leave the location to deal with the new danger that has emerged. The candidates are confused in the destroyed arena and wonder what happened to the test. Meanwhile, the blonde woman watches the examiner, who floats in the air with his spear in hand. Hojo appears and boasts, saying that the boy he recommended is amazing, isn't he? With a thoughtful look, the man in glasses admits he has no choice but to agree. He then smiles and comments to the blonde woman that, even so, this whole situation is crazy. The scene then shows a huge waterhole that looks like a portal to another world. The protagonist runs through the forest, and Aion reminds him that something is more important than the test right now. The young hero says he saw a strange green flame coming from the depths of that dark forest. He remembers feeling a malevolent presence coming from the bell he found earlier. Suddenly, the black-haired boy finds two other candidates who were in the exam with him. The spiky-haired young man with glasses recognizes the protagonist and is surprised to see him there. But the hero notices that the other two hunters who were with the boy seem strange. At this, he sees that one of them is completely petrified and turned into a stone statue. The spiky-haired boy tells him to be careful, because this could be the work of a monster. The protagonist is shocked by how dangerous this is, as he had only gone to take a leak. Then the hero faces the other candidate and asks directly if he is actually a relic. Aion is confused by the question, and the black-haired young man continues with a serious look on his face. He explains to the entity that he can see the presence of the relic coming from that strange place. But the boy says the presence isn't coming from a relic being held, but from the boy himself. The young man with glasses doesn't understand anything and asks if the protagonist is okay after the fight. The protagonist faces the adversary and asks if he is the basilisk he's been looking for. At this, the man in glasses lets out a dark smile and asks how the young man knows that secret name. With great anger, the boy orders the enemy to bring the petrified person back to normal immediately. Then he shouts again, demanding that the stranger undo the stone curse right now. At that moment, the young hero becomes furious while the opponent just stares at him with a mocking look. With that, the black-haired boy charges forward with his shining sword and advances on the mysterious enemy. But the villain just watches the attack approach with an expression of curiosity and complete calm. The two forces collide violently, creating a shockwave that destroys the ground around them. Suddenly, the protagonist realizes something impossible and is completely paralyzed by what he sees. The enemy is holding the sharp blade of the sword with just his bare hands, without suffering any cuts. The yellow-eyed boy is in shock and doesn't understand how the opponent managed to perform such a feat. At this, the man in glasses says the hero has misunderstood the current situation completely. With great effort, the young man tries to pull his weapon but realizes it's completely stuck. The adversary admits to turning the other hunter into a statue, but claims he is not the basilisk. The protagonist is confused and wonders what the guy means by that strange revelation. Then the stranger analyzes the boy's equipment and comments that he has never seen such a different object. But soon after, he smells a familiar scent and states that he remembers that disgusting presence. With a piercing gaze, the villain asks if the entity decided to turn into a relic. At that moment, the spirit of Aion appears with a serious expression and faces the adversary with great coldness. Then the man in glasses decides the fight will begin for real and quickly advances toward the hero. The man in glasses wonders what would be more beneficial for the basilisk in that situation. With this, the protagonist realizes that this guy really has some connection to the basilisk. But to the hero's surprise, the subject strikes a strange pose and shouts that he has no idea. With an evil smile, he says it doesn't matter and seems ready to fight seriously now. At this, his silhouette appears covered in a purple aura, and he says he will finish them all off. Without wasting time, he launches a powerful downward attack toward the young hero. The black-haired boy manages to block the blow, and the enemy shouts as he continues to attack. Then Mamoru appears and observes the opponent's weapon, saying he recognizes that different blade. The spirit reveals that it is the Ananthem Spider Sword, an item he knows very well. The entity confirms the protagonist's suspicion and says that the man is the relic itself. Dasan wonders why a personality within a relic would have a real physical body. At this, the young hero wonders if the basilisk is also a relic with a human body. Furious, he charges forward again and asks why they are turning people into statues. The adversary responds mockingly that he's only doing it because the basilisk told him to. The boy then asks how many people he has petrified, and the villain calls the question cruel. He then asks if the hero remembers how many nose hairs he has plucked in the last 5 years. Upon hearing this, the protagonist remembers his sister and explodes with rage at the disgusting comparison. With that, he releases a great wave of blue energy and delivers a powerful blow to the enemy. But the man in glasses claims he cannot be cut, and that relics were not made to be broken. Then the villain says it's time to fight seriously, and summons another dagger for dual combat. The villain mocks the young hero, asking how he's going to survive now that he has 2 weapons. Suddenly, the examiner appears with his own blade and prepares to join the fight. His eyes glow intensely as the name of his relic, Thorless, is revealed to all. With that, he uses his lightning spirit dance and launches a tornado of golden lightning at the enemy. The great electric storm spins at high speed and consumes everything around it in the area. The man in glasses is surprised that his adversary also knows the true name of his relic. The other candidate from the exam shouts Mr. Hakogami's name upon seeing him arrive for the battle. With a serious look, the examiner faces the new opponent, who suddenly appeared in the forest. Without wasting time, he charges forward with his spear and attacks the humanoid relic with a swift blow. Then the A-rank hunter creates several energy clones and uses his wild dance to attack. The electric clones surround the enemy and attack him from all sides with absurd speed. But the examiner is surprised by the opponent's skill and wonders what kind of trick it is. The villain praises the speed of the man in glasses and says the spear seems like a part of his body. With that, the two continue their intense exchange of blows, and the examiner notices something strange in the fight. He then notes that his opponent is actually not using just 2 relics as he thought. Suddenly, 4 floating blades appear, and the A-rank hunter is in shock at the revelation. The weapons attack the man from all sides in a sequence of fast and very dangerous blows. Aion observes everything and realizes that the examiner wasn't fighting at full strength against Touma. Seeing the situation, the protagonist decides he can no longer stand by and rushes to help in the fight. But the spirit shouts for the young man to wait as he advances into the middle of the intense combat. The young hero charges forward, thinking that with the enemy focused on the examiner, his attack will work. With that, he runs, determined to force the villain to talk about the basilisk no matter what. But a giant desperately shouts for the boy to retreat and remain calm in this dangerous situation. The opponent then reveals that his true form is an 8-bladed relic called an anthem. Suddenly, several golden weapons explode from the ground and fly at high speed in all directions. The villain now floats in the air with his 8 blades, looking like a giant, terrifying spider. With a drop of sweat on his face, the protagonist is completely paralyzed and in shock at the scene. At that moment, a large trail of red liquid flies through the air, indicating a serious injury. The man in glasses just looks down with a calm expression while his enemies are on the ground. To protect the boy, the examiner grabs him and pulls him out of the way of the adversary's deadly attack. With that, a large pool of red liquid forms on the ground, showing how severe the blow was. Fallen and injured, the man says that this happens because the young man only looks at what's in front of him. He explains that hunters always have people to protect, and this is his main teaching. He states that a limited vision prevents the protection of those who are important. The protagonist is shocked by the lesson, and the examiner warns that his clone is at its limit. He then recognizes Touma as an A-rank hunter and gives him a very important mission. The man asks the young man not to let anyone pass him for 5 minutes until his real body arrives. With his hand on the boy's shoulder, he says that now it's his turn to protect the people around him. The hero accepts the mission, as he was the only one recognized as A-rank in that difficult test. Seeing the scene, the villain is surprised and complains that fighting a clone is no fun at all. The villain says that for now, he will finish off anyone who knows about him, and a drone films everything. With an evil smile, he shouts that he will put an end to everyone there at that moment. Watching the live broadcast, the people at the Hunter Agency are completely terrified. But the protagonist stands up and says he will not allow him to create any more victims. He reflects and realizes he was only thinking about himself and his own situation. The young man understands that it's not just about being protected, but also about protecting others. With that, he swears he will save Suzu, but first he needs to fulfill his promise there. His eyes shine, and he shouts that he will protect what Mr. Hakogami entrusted to him. Meanwhile, Asuon wonders why the relic Ananthem took on a human form. The entity then tells the boy that each blade he created has a unique characteristic. With that, the spirit asks the young hero to use the characteristic of the dragon scale blade. The boy concentrates and, together with the spirit, prepares to use all his power at once. On the other side, the enemy just stares at the scene with a confident smile and a mocking look. The protagonist then remembers the examiner's words about the 5-minute mission. At this, Aion repeats that each blade has its own characteristic, and the boy's power increases. The villain realizes the hero is deep in thought and seems to be planning something. Without wasting time, he launches his 8 golden blades toward the black-haired young man. With a terrifying smile, he shouts that they are in the middle of a battle, and there is no time to think. The enemy then states that the boy won't last even 5 minutes, and attacks him with everything he has. But suddenly, the protagonist's eye glows, indicating that he has finally come up with a plan. The villain charges forward with his 2 front blades to attack the young hero head-on. The boy manages to block the blow, and the enemy wonders if that is a blind spot. With a terrifying smile, the adversary pressures the protagonist with all his might. The black-haired boy is pushed back and realizes the huge difference in power. With the impact, he is thrown far away and hits the forest floor violently. At this, he is hit by several attacks in sequence and ends up suffering some injuries. Wounded, he realizes that at this rate, he will end up being finished off by the stronger opponent. Then the humanoid relic scoffs and asks if a little thinking will change anything in the fight. With that, the man in glasses launches all his blades in a shower of deadly attacks. But the young hero plants his feet on the ground and prepares for what's to come without retreating. He faces the barrage of blows head-on, and seems to have a plan to counterattack. With a determined look, he shouts for the enemy to prepare for what's about to happen. His eye glows with an intense blue energy as he concentrates fully on the battle. Suddenly, the boy moves at high speed and defends against all the attacks with his sword. The villain is surprised by the boy's new ability and doesn't understand what happened there. He then realizes what the young hero was planning during this whole fight. The adversary understands that the boy concentrated his energy in his vision and arms to fight. But he explains that this energy, called preloma, also works as armor. With this, the enemy states that if a blow hits an unreinforced part, the game is over. The villain acknowledges the young man's determination and launches another attack with all his blades. The villain scoffs, saying the young man's determination is pathetic and that he's just buying time. Then he shouts for the boy to stop defending and come at him with everything he's got. The protagonist remains silent, a drop of sweat running down his determined face. At this, the adversary gets irritated and asks if the boy really thinks he's an idiot. He then says he won't continue with these weak attacks and transforms one of his arms. Aion observes and confirms that the enemy has not yet used the special ability of his relic. The spirit realizes that the humanoid relic wasn't fighting seriously until that moment. The villain then decides he will end everything before the real Lancer shows up to help. With that, he transforms his arm into a giant cursed weapon full of sharp spikes. The new weapon, with spiderweb details, spins at high speed, ready for the final attack. Without hesitation, the enemy delivers a powerful blow toward the fallen clone and the protagonist. The young hero looks up in shock, and the entity warns him that the attack is coming with full force. With an evil smile, the man in glasses prepares for the strike, while Aion says this is the critical moment. The boy manages to block the giant weapon, and the villain shouts in surprise at the unexpected defense. The force of the impact is so great that the young hero is dragged backward with great violence. He then feels the overwhelming pressure of the blow and struggles not to be split in half by the weapon. With a look of pure malice, the adversary shouts that he will turn the boy to dust right now. The protagonist feels like his arms are about to explode from the absurd force of the attack. To avoid yielding, he plants his feet on the ground and uses all his strength to resist the blow. With this, he manages to hold firm for another moment in the battle against the humanoid relic. The young hero can barely stay on his feet as the pressure from the enemy's weapon crushes him against the ground. With a desperate look, the other candidate sees the villain's spinning weapon getting closer and closer to his face. The image shows the protagonist's back as he uses all his strength to withstand the force of the attack. He then remembers the petrified hunter and the promise he made to protect him for 5 minutes. A voice in his head says that this time, it's his turn to protect the person who saved him before. With great anger, the boy plants his feet on the ground and curses for being in such a difficult situation. On the other side, the adversary shouts with a determined look that he will never lose this battle. Then the humanoid relic charges with a deafening cry, ready to finish the combat once and for all. With an evil smile, he scoffs that just having courage won't change the final outcome. But suddenly, the villain notices something, and his mocking look changes to one of pure surprise. He stares at the protagonist's weapon and wonders why the blade has suddenly turned so red. Aion then says he will show the young man how a real dragon breathes fire to win. The entity explains that a dragon rubs its scales together to convert impact into pure power. With this, he reveals that the main characteristic of the dragon scale blade is the same thing. The weapon's ability is to accumulate all the impact from blows and then release it all at once. The villain panics upon realizing that the hero was defending himself to charge his sword. At that moment, Aion shouts for Touma to swing the blade with all the strength he has left. The adversary desperately tries to stop the attack, but it's too late for any reaction. With a powerful cry, the protagonist releases all the accumulated energy in his dragon scale blade. An explosion of orange energy consumes everything, and it seems the enemy has finally been defeated. The protagonist shouts with fury, releasing all the accumulated energy in a devastating attack. With that, the image of a red energy dragon emerges with the power of the blow. The dragon scale blade finally manages to break the enemy's cursed weapon. At this, the humanoid relic is completely shocked and speechless at what happened. He tries to push the weapon back but can't contain the absurd force of the young man's attack. The pressure is so great that he screams in pain, feeling like his arms are about to explode. Then the blow hits him squarely, and the humanoid relic is thrown far away with violence. The boy plants his feet on the ground as the power of the attack continues to advance without stopping for a second. A huge wave of orange energy advances like a hurricane, destroying everything in its path. With his imperial fury, the hero finally manages to defeat the enemy and complete his mission. With his dragon-scale blade, he unleashes a devastating explosive attack. The adversary cries out in pain as they're hit head-on by the power. Thrown far away by the impact, the opponent has no chance to fight back. Then, the protagonist prepares a reverse counter attack to finish the fight. The enemy hits the ground hard, completely defeated by the blow. Upside down, he coughs a little, showing the damage was severe. And so, our hero stands victorious with the other guy down on the grass. Out of breath, he thinks about his dragon sword's special ability. It can store the impact of blows and release all the energy at once. The power is so strong that his bones would have turned to dust without Pleroma's reinforcement. Suddenly, footsteps are heard, and our hero calls out the fallen rival's name. He approaches and demands that an anthem tell him everything he knows about Basilisk. The guy on the ground thinks it's absurd and asks why he would tell him anything. Besides, he says Basilisk are his comrades, and he would never betray them. A girl with horns gets furious hearing this and yells at the enemy. At that moment, a purple crack appears on the protagonist's face, and he gets startled. A spirit appears, saying that time is up, and it will give him a piece of information as a gift. The entity reveals that Basilisk already knows Tio has become an artifact and will come after her. Then, a dark memory of vengeance takes over our hero's thoughts. He's in shock with the revelation as the purple energy surrounds him. The defeated enemy says that Basilisk will not lose, and that their vengeance will happen. Aion just stares at the spot with a serious expression on his face. Without saying a word, the protagonist is confused and asks the entity what this vengeance means. With that, Aion reveals that he was the one who created all the weapon artifacts. He turned people into weapons to make them stronger and more resilient. The spirit had no other choice, as his world was threatened by monsters. The artifacts were used to protect many lives, but the situation suddenly changed. Their civilization found a way to banish all the monsters to another dimension. And after the monsters disappeared, Aion and the weapons were discarded in this hole. Our hero is shocked by the story and thinks it's all very cruel. Then he asks Aion if, because of that, he also dislikes those people. Aion doesn't answer and just kneels, touching the remains of Ananthem's artifact. Purple energy comes out of the pieces, and he wonders if that is his friend's love. Holding the energy, he feels a painful yet gentle nostalgic sensation. In a memory, Ananthem observes the destruction and says the monsters can't be stopped. The young man admits he isn't smart, but sees no other way to save his comrades. Back then, Aion just listened to his friend with a very sad expression. Then, Ananthem smiles and entrusts his life to Aion to be turned into a weapon. Back in the present, Aion understands that Ananthem became an artifact out of love. The energy then dissipates into the air as he whispers his comrade's name. On the battlefield, our hero and the entity are left alone after the revelation. Suddenly, a voice emerges, and the protagonist turns to see who has arrived. To his surprise, Ms. Hakagami appears, and he calls her by name. At that moment, she unleashes an absurd power aura, revealing her true form. The woman comments that it's been a while since she's expected anything from anyone, but he surpassed those expectations. She then turns to observe the trail of destruction the fight left in its wake. A brief memory shows a younger Hakogami facing one of the stone victims. The teacher says he's now rank A, and they no longer need formalities. With a slight smile on her face, she congratulates him on his excellent work on the mission. Upon being called by his name, the young man is in shock for a moment, not knowing what to say. Right after, he breaks into a huge smile and thanks her, very happy for the recognition. Seeing the boy's condition, the woman helps him up, asking him to lean on her. Meanwhile, in a dungeon, a warrior complains to his master about the change. He's reporting to Master Basilisk, who is in front of monster statues. Suddenly, the statues begin to crumble and turn into a sea of red flowers. The master apologizes and says he was just cleaning up the new home for all of them. He explains that the old dungeon became too small and that now their numbers will grow. Then the subordinate informs him that Aion has also become an artifact. The villain is pleased with the news and says it's wonderful that Aion is one of them. Finally, Basilisk reveals that he will use the old dungeon as a test for a nation. A boy with purple hair understands the reason for that giant rift in the planet's sky. With an evil smile, he says it's going to be a festival with a great fireworks show. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure in a purple hood releases a green energy. The hooded being creates blue roses that fall into a dark portal as a gift. Back on the battlefield, they decide to take the petrified master back with them. But suddenly, the protagonist turns his head, feeling that something is very wrong. Looking at the sky, he's in shock and wonders what that thing approaching is. A gigantic and dark dungeon begins to descend from the heavens towards them. The young man realizes that the visible part alone is 20 times larger than the dragon ruins. The teacher explains that the size of the rift and the ruin indicate the danger level. She says it's a national level threat but asks them to remain calm because that person is with them. At that moment, an explosion of golden light happens in the sky and obliterates the dungeon. A blonde guy appears upside down in the air, complaining and asking for a break. He laments that the treasure disappeared, even after he searched everywhere for it. Our hero and Aion are shocked, seeing the giant dungeon turn into little pieces. Hakagami comments that the man doesn't appear in public because he finds it a pain, but without a doubt, Takaki Hosho is the strongest in the world and the number 1S rank. The boy is left speechless, as he never imagined Mr. Hosho was so incredible. The world's strongest man then approaches the group to talk to them. He praises the young man for passing the test and defeating an artifact, and the boy thanks him. The world's strongest man says that since the boy surpassed his expectations, he has a favor to ask. With a smile on his face, he extends his hand and asks to borrow a little money from the young man. The teacher gets furious at his nerve, but the blonde man says it was just a joke. Then, the most powerful man explains that they are gathering elite hunters from all over the world. He extends his hand to the boy and says he senses a destiny of great growth in him. With that, The number 1 rank invites him to join his alliance, and the young man is surprised. The protagonist bows and declines the invitation, as his sister is his top priority at the moment. The blonde man just looks at him with a confident gaze and gives him a thumbs up. The boy then thanks the teacher for saving all of them from that situation. The gray-haired man suggests it would be good to get an elixir for the injured one. The woman remembers that the white dragon will provide some, and the man says goodbye, reminding the blonde guy about the money. The teacher scolds the number 1 rank for asking the boy for money, and also trying to recruit him. The world's strongest man tells her not to worry, as it's not a problem. He watches the young man walk away, and says that his destiny is already sealed, just like Mitsuya's. With a confident look, he just tells his companion to watch what's going to happen. The blonde man then flies into the sky, and the teacher asks if it will be like it was with her. In a memory, we see Hosho inviting a younger Mitsuya to form an alliance. Apparently, he put her in a no-win situation, and the blonde man just laughs, saying it's destiny. Back in the present, the woman becomes thoughtful, trying to understand what he is planning. Later, Aion asks our hero if he's sure that declining the invitation was the best choice. Aion says that having powerful allies would be the best way to find Basilisk. The young man admits he was happy with the invitation from such strong people, but there's a catch. He explains that in an alliance, the members live and eat together at the base and travel the world. The entity understands that the problem is his sister Rin, and he becomes worried. The protagonist then confirms that his main goal is to completely heal the girl. At this, he remembers the enemy and wonders how he was able to turn people to stone. Aion explains that the basilisk produces various venoms and probably supplied a petrifying one. The bluish being reveals that before becoming an artifact, the villain was adored by many people. The hero realizes there are others like an anthem, and besides, he needs to get even stronger. So he asks Aion for help with his training, but the spirit finds that very difficult. The entity agrees to help if the boy satisfies its hunger, and he promises that Suzu will cook. Arriving home, the protagonist calls for his sister, but the apartment seems empty. He enters and finds no one, so Aion also starts calling for the girl. The young man wonders if she went shopping when he notices a note on the table. The note says that Suzu was invited to Toyota Mare's clan and will make her debut as a hunter. The hero becomes furious and curses the blonde king of debt, asking Aion to track Suzu. Aion complains about being treated like a dog, but accepts the mission and prepares to fly for love. Following the trail, they arrive at some ruins, and the protagonist wonders if she is there. Arriving there, the young man spots a blonde woman standing in front of the ruins entrance. The woman smiles and compliments Rin-chan, saying she mastered the weapon she was given very quickly. The protagonist arrives and asks where Rin is, and the woman says she's in a dungeon. Angrily, the young man questions why she got involved with his younger sister. The woman then reveals with a smile that she did it, so he would join the alliance. The hero becomes furious with her answer and summons his bladeless sword. Using his steel cutting ability, he rushes forward to attack the opponent. Next, he uses the iron cage transformation to try and trap the woman, but she easily dodges the attack, using her flying cape to escape. The boy complains that he doesn't have time to deal with this fight now and gets annoyed. With that, he runs into the dungeon, calling out Suzu's name. Suddenly, the blonde woman appears behind him, holding an alchemical elixir in her hands. At that, she attacks him with a powerful golden ability that sends him flying. Then the woman offers him some delicious food from another world. The protagonist tastes the food and is shocked by how good it really is. Taking advantage of the opening, the blonde woman attacks him again and easily knocks him to the ground. She explains that the phrase about relics bringing prosperity is just a cliché, and that it's selfish to use them without thinking about the sacrifices and destruction they cause. Looking at the horizon, the woman reveals that she wants to erase the Tenketsu from the world. With a serious expression, she states that her true goal is to save the world. The young man is shocked, wondering if she really has such a grand plan. However, the landscape shows that the path to this will be very difficult. The protagonist tells the blonde man that he isn't such an admirable person. He continues, saying that even with great power, if he had to choose between the world or Suzu, the young man states with certainty that he would choose his sister without a second thought. At that moment, he has a vision of Suzu calling him, all happy for having cleared a dungeon by herself. The girl proudly shows her phone, saying she started today and has already finished a raid. The older brother then realizes the so-called clan was just a game, but Suzu interrupts him with a question. She says she finds the idea of her brother fighting to get rid of the ski holes amazing. The girl remembers that he defeated that dragon monster, and everyone in her class asked her to thank him. With that, she felt a little proud of how amazing her big bro was. The girl then says there are people all over the world who need him, but she gets a little worried, so she gives him a charm and asks him to come home for dinner once in a while. The boy is surprised by the gift from his dear sister. A friend of the girl tells him to throw the origami away, but the situation has already become a mess. Back in the present, the blonde man grabs the young man from behind and asks if he's not honorable just for putting his sister first. He continues, saying that this is more than enough, leaving our protagonist very confused. The light-haired man explains that from the beginning, his alliance has always been a group of people like that. Everyone there does their best to protect what they love most, and he believes that this will naturally lead to the salvation of the entire world. With his hand extended, the leader asks one last time if the young man will join his alliance. Then our hero firmly holds the object in his hand and gives the man a determined smile. The boy shakes the blonde man's hand and says he's looking forward to working with him. With that, we see a happy image of the protagonist and his sister celebrating. The group leader gives a satisfied smile and says the case is closed. However, one of the members complains about the blonde man attacking him out of nowhere, and he apologizes. Then the man with glasses tells the boy not to worry, as a clone of his will protect his sister. Our hero is very relieved and happy to know that the girl will be safe. At that moment, he takes the opportunity to scold Suzu for following others so easily. The leader then informs the rookie that he will be working with Mitsuya's team. He explains that people with strange arms are appearing, and their mission is to stop them. With a sinister smile, we see the face of one of these new and powerful enemies. The protagonist realizes that he can't stay the way he is now. With his eyes shining, he shouts that he will get stronger and accepts the task. But the blonde man interrupts him and invites him to train with him for just one night. The boy stands still, waiting to hear what the man has to say. With a confident smile, he promises that he will make the young man 3 times stronger. He repeats the invitation for the young man to train with him during the night, and he reinforces that in this dungeon, he will make him 3 times stronger than he is now. Our hero replies that this was exactly what he was waiting for. He remembers his past fights and how he doesn't want to be left behind again. Then, with his eyes glowing, the boy shouts that he's in the leader's hands. However, the man with sunglasses interrupts the blonde man and asks why he is there. He says the rookie will join his team and that he himself will handle the training. But the alliance leader refuses, stating that he was the one who recruited the boy first. Watching the argument, the protagonist's sister is a bit lost, not understanding the situation. So, the girl suggests that they both train him together, and they stop to think about the idea. The one with glasses says it's possible if the boy stops eating, sleeping, and resting. The blonde man worries that this is too much, but the other suggests using 100 recovery potions. With scary smiles on their faces, the two look at the young man and call him to start. Completely terrified, our hero asks them to take it easy on the training. From afar, his sister raises her arms and shouts words of encouragement to him. The scene changes to a large mansion, where the arrival of a new member is being discussed. Inside the house, a white-haired young man is happy that the team will finally have 4 people. He comments that the rookie is an A rank who passed the exam with Mr. Hakagami as the proctor. Upon hearing this, His red-haired partner named Enjo Ryuga becomes visibly irritated. The white-haired one, Enraku Mikudo, continues, saying that the boy's ability is S level. The redhead then becomes enraged and asks if Mikudo is saying the rookie is stronger than him. Seeing his friend's reaction, the white-haired boy is scared to bits. Enjo lunges at his colleague, shouting that he would have passed that exam easily too. While holding Mikudo, he is informed that the new member has already arrived. The Hothead then says he'll teach him, who's boss, and runs off shouting for the rookie. The story continues with a boy suffering in a chair while his new companions watch him. From his expression, the boy seems to be in a lot of pain and is completely out of it. With that, the observing duo comments that it looks like he has already learned something. Then the group leader approaches and introduces the rookie named Touma Kurogane, asking them to take care of him. Even all broken, the boy manages to stutter, "Nice to meet you," to the team. The man with glasses then explains that to help, he injected a bunch of potions directly into the boy's veins. The duo gets even more scared, wondering what they did to the poor guy for him to need that. Shortly after, the boss says he's been called for another mission and that the team should take the rookie on today's mission. The redhead complains, wanting to go along, but the leader says he's not a babysitter and tells them to work together. After giving the orders, the man with glasses disappears in a flash of light, leaving the three behind. The red-haired boy gets really annoyed with his superior, even though he's only an A rank. At that moment, he turns to Kurogane and calls him Ragdoll to command respect. The rookie gets a little nervous and repeats the offensive nickname he just got. The veteran then makes it clear that the boy is a weak rank while he is a powerful S rank. He approaches the seated boy and asks if he understands the power hierarchy there. Shouting in the rookie's face, he tells the poor guy to engrave it in his soul that he's lower on the food chain. But the mood is cut by the white-haired girl, who cheerfully introduces herself as Mikudo Anraku. The girl starts talking super fast about a dungeon and asks Kurogane to just call her Mikudo. Shortly after, she becomes fascinated by the boy's relic and asks if she can register it in the database. The redhead gets annoyed for being completely ignored and yells at the rookie, who denies the accusation. The veteran grabs the rookie by the collar and yells at him not to get cocky, because he's the top dog here. The black-haired boy calmly agrees, saying that's the reality. After all, the redhead finds the rookie's reaction dull and decides to start the mission, telling him to just watch. As they walk, the spirit comments that the group is interesting and that it feels their club. The bluish entity then says that this isn't true and that there's more going on there. She explains that the red-haired boy has a love sense similar to Touma's. The trio arrives at a giant structure, and the protagonist asks if the mission is to clear abandoned dungeons. The girl confirms, saying that at first she thought so too, but the job is very important. She explains that if a dungeon is left alone for too long, it can collapse and turn into a disaster. The reason this happens is very simple. The clearing difficulty is too high for normal adventurers. We see an example of this with a group of adventurers facing powerful monsters inside a portal. A group of sextuplets celebrates their victory, boasting about their incredible teamwork. But the joy is short-lived as even stronger monsters emerge from the shadows to attack them. The A-rank group panics upon seeing that their powerful relic weapons don't even leave a scratch. Desperate, they scream as a giant creature advances to finish them all off at once. Suddenly, a flaming slash intercepts the monster, preventing it from attacking the adventurers. The group of brothers is left jaw-dropped, not understanding what just saved them from being eliminated. It was the redhead who saved them, and now he tells that low-level trash to go home and get a job. Alone, he faces the entire horde of monsters, leaving the A-rank group completely terrified. The veteran then prepares to use his strongest technique, the Sword of the Absolute Victor. With his flaming sword, the redhead launches a powerful slash that completely destroys the monster. Seeing the S-rank's absurd power, the group of adventurers that was saved flees from there completely terrified. The rookie is impressed with the strength of his new teammate and praises him. The girl then explains that the relic's name is Purgatory Masamune and compares it to the leader's. The veteran says his technique is quite simple, as the monster pieces fall burning around him. He then gives a smug smile and boasts that despite being simple, his ability is very powerful. But the fight isn't over yet, and another creature attacks, firing several energy balls towards the redhead. The red-haired boy easily dodges the attacks and calls them useless with an air of superiority. The problem is that the deflected attacks are now heading straight for the duo who were just watching. The girl panics, but quickly starts searching her bag for a relic to defend herself. Fortunately, she finds what she needs and activates her tool relic, the compass of the yellow bell. The compass then creates a huge, yellow energy barrier in front of the two to protect them. The shield manages to completely stop the monster's attack without taking a single scratch. After using her relic, the girl seems a bit tired but relieved to have managed to save herself. The rookie is once again impressed, thinking about how incredible the members of the Kaseki clan are. The redhead then makes fun of him, saying an A rank can't keep up with the fight, but the girl defends him. The protagonist then decides he can't be left behind and prepares to show his worth. With a determined look, he says he will put the results of his training to the test right now. The boy then activates his own ability, the Blade of the Empty Hand Imperial Fury, full of power. Observing everything, the group leader recognizes the technique as unarmed creation and praises it for being versatile. The scene flashes back to Touma's training, where he is exhausted on the ground holding his sword. During the previous night, the clan leader said that the boy's ether manipulation was already acceptable. The master then instructs him to absorb everything from wood and rubber to dragon scales to adapt. With his dragon scale blade, he should always keep the reverse scale charged to use whenever he wanted. The boy thinks that to activate this powerful technique, he first needs to accumulate a large impact on the sword. To help with the training, the master prepares to attack him with full force, telling him to defend himself. The rookie is completely terrified by the intensity of the training and shouts that he doesn't want to play this game anymore. Back in the present, the boy prepares to use his unarmed creation and show the result of his training. He then materializes his powerful dragon scale blade, getting ready for combat against the monsters. With a single blow, he unleashes the reverse scale, and a pillar of energy destroys all the enemies in the room. After the massive attack, the protagonist stands there, panting, amidst the destruction he just caused. His teammate goes crazy, praising Touma and saying she's never seen such a strong ability before. The boy smiles and explains that unfortunately, it's a one-time use move, and then the energy runs out. The redhead doesn't accept defeat and shouts with all his might, refusing to acknowledge the rookie's power. He accuses the boy of copying his sword, but the protagonist denies the accusation right away. The veteran continues to accuse him of jumping from E rank to A rank using money and being a rich kid. The white-haired girl panics, trying to calm the fight between the two, and says she's decided something. She proposes a competition where whoever defeats the ruins boss first will be the grand winner of the contest. The loser becomes a slave for a week, but the rookie just wants an apology, making the redhead angry. Arriving in the next room, they find everything destroyed, and the veteran complains that someone has already cleared the path. The veteran boasts that he is more than enough to handle the situation as they enter an empty room. The girl points to the treasure door, and the rookie says the boss usually appears there. She jokes that the boss has already been defeated, but the redhead threatens Touma if that's true. Suddenly, the place gets very cold, and the trio looks up, startled by a strange presence. On the floor, we see crystal paws materializing and freezing everything around them with a frosty aura. Then, a giant wolf made of blue crystals appears before them, ready for a deadly combat. The entire team is in shock and on high alert at the sudden appearance of the monster. Without wasting time, the red-haired boy charges forward, shouting at the ice creature. However, his blow misses, and the monster disappears into thin air, leaving the veteran very confused. The beast then reappears out of nowhere right next to the girl, who is completely terrified by its speed. The redhead says the boss is just a bit fast and cold as the two prepare to fight. At that moment, the girl receives a call from the communications room and answers, a little nervous. On the other end of the line, a female voice says she is updating their current mission orders. The new order is for them to retreat immediately, and the girl doesn't understand the reason for the change. In another room, an operator analyzes the data of the creature they are now facing. She explains that the monster looks like a boss that froze all of Hawaii 3 years ago. The Hunters Administration classified that ruin as a city annihilation class. But now she states that the difficulty is nation annihilation and reveals that the boss is Flak. The girl is terrified to hear that the monster is a nation annihilation class. The voice finishes by saying that the leader has been called, and again orders them to retreat immediately. Even with the order to retreat being repeated, the two boys prepare to face the monster. The veteran gives a smug smile and says he won't retreat because that thing is his prey. He boasts that is an S rank. He doesn't need to borrow his leader's strength to win. Pushing his partner aside, the red-haired boy advances alone to attack. The huge crystal creature then faces the duo, preparing to retaliate with full force. With a powerful blow from its paws, the beast easily throws both adventurers far away. The impact is devastating, and the two boys cry out in pain as they are thrown through the air. Lying on the ground, both are injured and beginning to freeze due to the monster's power. The girl is left alone in the icy mist, observing her friend's desperate situation. She screams in panic, not quite understanding what just happened and how the fight turned so quickly. Lying on the ground, the only thing on the girl's mind is the retreat order she received. The ice wolf then slowly approaches her, preparing to deliver the final blow to the team. But before it attacks, the two boys get up and defend her with their swords drawn. The beast then faces the trio, who are now reunited, with the girl still on the ground. The rookie realizes that the monster's speed is comparable to his leader's lightning speed. Even injured, the redhead says the cold he's feeling is nice and refreshing for him. The girl gets up and thanks them both for their help, telling them to retreat from the fight now. The veteran completely ignores her and shouts, asking her to get ready and provide cover in the battle. She panics and starts running while throwing everything out of her bag, looking for something useful. The protagonist then tells his rival that it's not the time to settle scores and that they need to cooperate. The redhead refuses to cooperate and calls the rookie a tattered rag, while the boy says it's not the time for that. With a determined look, he states that his rank will never go up if he can't defeat a monster like this. Then the veteran shouts with all his might that he will be the next number 1S rank hunter in the world. With his flaming sword, he unleashes a devastating attack that covers the entire room with his firepower. But the creature easily dodges, and the girl yells that the blow didn't even come close to hitting the target. The redhead gives a confident smile and says it doesn't matter because his plan will work anyway. He explains that it makes no difference how fast the monster runs if he burns the whole room. So he sets the entire place on fire, so there's no escape route for the creature. The girl complains about the intense heat, and the hothead tells her to deal with it if she has a problem. The protagonist thinks the idea is crazy and realizes they need something faster than the monster. Then he draws his bladeless weapon, and decides it's time to use his new secret ability. In a memory, his master watches as he unsuccessfully tries to create a water blade. The boy admits it's very difficult to understand the core of a formless target like water. The leader then orders him to master the technique by morning to gain a special blade body. Back in the present, the rookie concentrates and remembers the training to activate his power. A yellow electrical energy surrounds him as he tries to control the immense power flowing through him. He struggles to grasp the core of the energy and finally mold it into the shape of a sword. With clenched teeth and glowing eyes, he fights to keep the energy under control. Then he finally succeeds and unleashes his unarmed creation technique with absurd power. With his willpower, he finishes the process of grabbing the core and transforming it into a blade. With great effort, he finally manages to hold the energy and keep it stable in his hands. Then the rookie unleashes the Narmed Creation Thunder Blade and attacks the crystal creature. With a look full of determination, he wields his new lightning blade, ready for combat. The veteran is completely shocked by the power the rookie has just demonstrated. Then an aura of golden lightning covers the boy's entire body, revealing a new technique. His left eye begins to glow with the lightning's energy, showing his control over the ability. The crystal beast faces the trio as the redhead's fire burns everything around them. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and the two veterans are thrown far away by the impact. The rookie moves at an absurd speed and appears in front of them like a flash of lightning. The ground explodes with the impact of the movement, and the redhead watches, not understanding anything. His companions get up amidst the destruction, looking at what just happened. The protagonist is now face to face with the crystal creature, preparing for the attack. With a powerful roar, the ice beast unleashes a barrage of sharp crystals at him, but the boy withstands the direct hit without even moving, leaving the monster completely surprised. His friends don't understand anything, and he explains that if they concentrate power in their eyes, they'll be able to see. The veteran then concentrates and recognizes the technique the rookie is using at that moment. He yells that it's Mr. Hakogami's Wild Dance of the Lightning Cloak. In a memory, the master says he managed to turn Taurus's lightning into an easy-to-use sword. With that, he offers to teach him his special technique, the Wild Dance of the Lightning Cloak. The ability works by manipulating the bioelectricity of the muscles and electromagnetic force. The master explains that this is a short, range high-speed movement technique. With that, the crystal beast roars in anger and prepares to attack the group with full force. It then fires a powerful ice attack from its mouth to try and hit them. His companions have to jump and dodge the various ice spikes sprouting from the ground. Using his speed, the protagonist and his clones easily evade the beast's attacks. Finally, he manages to get close enough and comes face to face with the giant monster. Planting his feet on the ground, the boy prepares to unleash the true power of his new ability. He reveals that the true value of the technique is not evasion, but something else. With a determined look, he says that the technique's power is to pierce the enemy like lightning. Then he unleashes the Thunder Flash and pierces through the creature's chest with a single blow. The crystal beast roars in pain as the rookie continues his attack from inside its body. He then leaps out through the monster's back, causing a huge explosion of ice and energy. After the massive attack, he lands on the ground, panting and visibly tired from the effort. The lightning energy begins to fade, and the boy feels a bit dizzy from the power's recoil. His body then returns to normal, and the lightning aura completely vanishes after the final blow. Alone in the middle of the room, the hero observes the result of his new and incredible ability. He realizes he can't use the technique multiple times and still needs to train more, but the boy is happy to have succeeded, and Aion praises his two excellent teachers. His companions are left speechless for having defeated a nation annihilation boss. The rookie then turns to Ryuga and calls him by name, leaving the duo quite surprised. With a victorious smile, the boy asks his rival what the promise was if he lost the bet. The Hothid defends himself, saying it was a team effort because he cut off the monster's escape route. Full of anger, the redhead yells that he will turn the rookie into ashes for the taunt. The protagonist offers a deal to not become his slave, and the rival reluctantly accepts. He admits the boy is not just a weakling but calls him Suede Head to annoy him. The girl thinks the new nickname is cute, but the hero is disgusted, finding the insult even worse than the last one. The argument continues with the redhead accusing him of stealing techniques, and the rookie denying everything. Their companion steps in between and says it's a waste of time to fight over something so silly. She points to a door and says that, since they defeated the boss, they now need to go somewhere. With her arms raised, the girl shouts that they need to go to the treasure chamber. Now, her eyes sparkle with excitement at the idea of finding various rare and powerful items. The chamber is gigantic and packed with treasures, as expected from a ruin of that level. The redhead doesn't care about the treasures and says his sword is more than enough for him. The protagonist observes a small gem he found amidst all that gold and wealth. He remembers that in the past, treasures were just things to grab and carry as quickly as possible. Another memory shows someone offering him a golden item, but he doesn't seem very interested. The girl finds a set of orbs and a duplication medicine, getting very excited to use them. Even with a magic bag that holds 100 times its volume, she still has trouble storing everything. The rookie praises her knowledge, and the redhead explains that the girl's hobby is studying relics. He then asks if her weapon is that compass, and she confirms it's a tool-type relic. With a shy look, she admits she has a single weapon relic, but doesn't know how to use it very well. Right after, the girl asks if the rookie wants to know the real difference between the types of relics. Explaining the details, she says that the tools are made from the fangs or fluids of dangerous monsters. Then the protagonist mentions the spirit medicine, and the girl explains about the 4 levels, from low to special. At this moment, incredible items are shown, like energy reactors and objects that can even turn back time. Revealing absurd values, the young woman says that a single drop of this medicine is worth 5 billion gold coins. On the other hand, the materials for special weapons are a total mystery, and no one knows how they were made. But from the design, the girl suspects they were all made by the same creator, and the spirit is impressed. Looking at the large hall, the huntress finds it strange that there are no weapon relics amidst the ruins' treasure. Agreeing with the girl, the bluish entity feels that something is very strange and unnatural in that place. While the redhead yells for her to hurry up, the girl is undecided about what kind of meat to take home. Coming down the stairs with a huge grin, the young woman celebrates the large number of items she managed to collect. With these tools, she will have support for everything, like buffs and interferences to help the group in fights. Feeling confident, the girl promises she will shine brightly in the next battle against a powerful boss. Suddenly, everyone's feet begin to lift off the ground, and a strange light envelopes the 3 hunters. Screaming in fright, they realize they are floating in zero gravity inside a colorful and infinite space. With that, the boy asks the spirit what is happening, and the entity replies that this is the worst-case scenario. At this, it reveals that they have entered the celestial void, which acts as a dumpster for different dimensions. At that moment, several dark creatures begin to emerge in the center of the portal, ready to devour the intruders. Finally, a giant purple monster appears, roaring with fury as it shows its sharp teeth to the group of heroes. The protagonist is in shock and wonders why there are so many monsters in that place, but his red-haired companion is not intimidated and prepares to fight with a grumpy face. He says they just have to defeat them all, but the rookie yells that they can't fight without their feet on the ground. With that, the girl panics and desperately screams for someone to do something quickly. The Hothead then tries to attack the enemies, even while floating in the void of that strange place. Seeing the difficulty, the hero realizes they are completely useless in that situation without footing. The redhead then yells at his companion to use her relics and asks if she's only good for running away. With her eyes spinning, the girl gets terrified and throws the responsibility back onto the 2 boys. At that moment, the veteran complains that the situation is very boring and annoying for him. He then uses his friend for support and kicks her down towards the horde of monsters. The girl screams in terror as she is thrown towards a yellow light and the creatures. With a pirouette in the air, she tries to stabilize herself as the monsters get closer and closer. A flying monster charges towards her, and the young woman screams, telling it not to come near. Angrily, she complains that it's unfair that only the creatures can move freely in that space. The girl then, she's going to perish alone there, and hates that idea with all her might. With that, she activates one of her relics called Explosive Eye, which is a low-level bomb. Then the girl throws the artifact with all her might towards the creatures, yelling for them to eat it. The bomb hits one of the monster's head, on and begins to glow intensely before exploding. A large fiery explosion occurs and completely destroys the creature that was hit. But from the smoke emerges an even larger monster that seems to have taken no damage from the attack. The redhead says the attack didn't work, but the rookie tells him to take a closer look at the result. With that, the giant creature stares at the small bomb that survived and continues to float in the air. Then the artifact begins to split and multiply into several other identical spheres. At this, the bombs multiply faster and faster, filling the space with dozens of them. Thus, all the creatures are surrounded by a cloud of bombs ready to detonate at any moment. Each of the artifacts trembles a little as it prepares for the big mass explosion. The girl reveals that she used a duplication medicine to multiply the object sufficiently. Then a chain explosion occurs and destroys all the monsters with devastating force. The trio is thrown back by the impact, and the protagonist praises his friend's incredible strategy. With the enemies out of the picture, Aion draws the boy's attention to something important on the horizon. The spirit points to a large floating ruin and says that going there is their best option. It explains that from there, they might be able to return home, just like with the White Dragon's ruins. The young hero wonders how they will get there, and Aion grabs one of the remaining bombs to help. Using the explosion as a boost, the trio is launched with full force towards the ruin while screaming in fright. Getting closer, they realize that the entire structure is covered in red, sinister flowers. After the fall, the redhead complains that he almost passed on, and the rookie is grateful to feel gravity again. Then Aion reveals that their objective is the treasure chamber, and the boy doesn't understand why. The entity explains that the treasure chamber can generate a portal for them to return to their world, but it warns them not to defeat the boss, or the dungeon will disappear, and the hero agrees with the plan. The boy finds it strange that there are no monsters in their path, but two creatures are already waiting for them in the hall. With his eyes wide, our hero stares at the scene, shocked by what he's seeing. Two giant red creatures are standing in the hall, covered in sinister purple flames. The redhead then asks what the plan is, but the rookie ignores him and runs towards the monsters. Without any fear, the boy touches one of the beasts to better understand the situation. At that moment, he realizes that it's actually a monster that was petrified by someone. Looking to the side, the hero sees that there are several other stone monsters lined up. Suddenly, a purple dagger appears, and the boy wonders if this is the work of a basilisk. Red flower petals begin to float through the air, making the atmosphere even more tense. The stone statues then begin to tremble and merge, forming a new creature. A giant monster appears, but the redhead says that now that he has ground to stand on, he's not afraid of anything. The girl agrees with a mischievous smile and tells the two boys to take care of the enemy. With a snap of her fingers, she activates one of her relics to escape the fight that's about to start. In the blink of an eye, the young woman disappears, leaving her two companions behind, confused. But the escape doesn't work, and the girl screams in terror as she's chased by another monster. Meanwhile, the two boys are enveloped in a blue light and suddenly vanish from the spot. They then appear in a huge hall full of white pillars, with the floor covered in water. The duo is lost, not understanding the change of scenery, and they wonder where their friend is. A mysterious voice says they can move from room to room, and the two look up. A white-haired guy then appears and welcomes them to the celestial hole. The redhead becomes furious and yells, asking what the stranger did to their companion. The villain says the girl was left behind and by now has probably become monster bait. And indeed, we see the girl running desperately from two enormous beasts chasing her. With this, the redhead becomes furious with the enemy and prepares to attack him with everything he's got. But the protagonist stops him, telling him to calm down because that guy isn't human. The boy explains that he's just like an anthem, a relic that has gained a physical body. Our hero faces him with a serious look, understanding the gravity of the situation. The hothead doesn't care and says it doesn't matter what he is, because he will defeat him. The enemy laughs at the comparison and asks not to be grouped with that idiot who stopped thinking. With that, he tells the humans to leave their relics and disappear as he reveals his golden wings. Aion then warns our hero to be careful with the relic called a Icarus. The spirit explains that those wings are blades and allow for high-speed flight. The villain then turns his back and reveals that he also has a golden sword. With a confident smile, he draws his weapon and prepares to start the fight. A memory of a gluttonous enemy flashes through the protagonist's mind, who notices the villain's mistake. Seeing the boy's reaction, the enemy recognizes him as the one who cleared the White Dragon's ruins. He comments that it's much faster to simply take the relics from humans by force. Our hero then tells his partner that this guy isn't as strong as he seems. The redhead agrees and calls the enemy an idiot for not knowing a basic rule about the weapons. He explains that the powers of the relics will cancel each other out, making them much weaker. The villain just smiles and throws his sword into the air, questioning their theory. The villain finds humans inconvenient and unleashes a curse explosion to attack. With that, a huge fiery explosion occurs and throws both heroes far away with the impact. The duo screams from the force of the attack and tries to protect themselves as best as they can. Then the enemy catches his flaming sword in the air and praises his opponent's courage. The boys are shocked because not even Hakugami can use two relics at once. Aion explains that one relic using another is something completely new and unpredictable. The protagonist admits the villain is strong, but he is also trained and become more powerful. With a determined look, he promises he will defeat a human relic without help. The rookie then asks his partner to fall back, but the redhead says he's the one who will get in the way. The two then shout the names of their techniques and prepare to attack the enemy with everything they have. Watching the scene, the villain just gives a confident little smile, finding it all very amusing. The hothead unleashes his flames and yells at his partner not to drag him down. Our hero doesn't fall behind either and creates his powerful Vajra blade for the battle. But the veteran uses his back as a springboard to be able to fight alone. He yells that he had already told his partner to fall back and shoves him aside with the blow. Alone in front of the villain, the redhead tells him to go back to where their friend is. Then the boy charges forward with full force and unleashes his powerful furious hellfire slash on the enemy. With a wild smile on his face, he commands the attack to explode and spread across the entire field. Next, he uses the roaring flame eruption, creating a huge pillar of fire. The attack hits the villain head on, but he seems to emerge completely unscathed from the flames. The villain passes through the pillar of fire without a scratch, leaving the redhead completely shocked. With a smile on his face, he asks if the boy is satisfied with the attack's result. The hothead screams in anger for not even being able to scratch the enemy with his blow. The white-haired man says he should have listened to Touma's advice earlier. He calls him a loser for not knowing the relic's true name and the ability's name. Floating in the air, the villain taunts him, saying he can attack whenever he wants, but it will be useless. With clenched teeth, the redhead fills with rage and prepares to fight with all his might. He says that even without knowing the relic's name, he has his own way of doing things. Then, with his eyes glowing, the boy shouts that he will show his trump card now, but the enemy changes targets and attacks the protagonist, saying his real target is Aion. He offers a deal to let the hero go if he leaves the spirit behind and attacks. A large explosion occurs, and the villain's sword lunges with full force towards the boy. Our hero is thrown back by the force of the impact and tries to defend himself from the blow. He manages to block the attack with his blade and is surprised by the enemy's power. Using his ability, the boy creates several clones to counter, attack, and protect himself. He is shocked at how much the relic's performance changes depending on the user. While dodging the attacks, the protagonist asks if his goal is also vengeance. The villain says he doesn't care about grudges or the fact that he was abandoned. His only desire is to be praised by Lord Basilisk, and that's why he wants Aion. With a crazy smile, he calls this love and asks the spirit Aion for help. Aion says that Icarus's appearance and personality haven't changed at all since the old days. The spirit says it will gradually wear down with the adaptability of that blade. With that, our hero activates his powerful diamond blade in its scattered form. Then he uses the golden grain diamond blade to protect himself from the attacks. The enemy praises Aion but says that, in contrast, the protagonist is completely useless. With a smile, he throws his sword away and says he no longer needs it to fight. The weapon falls into the water as the hero watches the scene, not understanding the villain's strategy. With his eyes glowing with anger, the boy fills with determination to end the fight. He then spins his weapon with all his might and launches a powerful golden attack towards the enemy. The blow hits several of the villain's clones at once, causing a series of explosions in the air. The white-haired man is surprised by the speed of the attack and can't react. Aion explains that the modified blade uses centrifugal force and exceeds the speed of sound. The entity reveals that the blow's power is comparable to the Imperial Fury, and it almost hits the villain. The enemy manages to dodge at the last second and says the attack is a bit dangerous, but he mocks, saying it's pointless if the blow doesn't hit the target in the end. With that, he reminds them that the more time they waste there, the more danger their friends are in. The hero remembers his friend in trouble and gets a worried expression on his face. Suddenly, the golden attack changes direction and comes back to hit the villain from behind. The enemy is hit head-on and thrown with full force against one of the hall's pillars. The protagonist then says he knows that, and that's why he's going to end this quickly. With a shout, the hero says he will settle this and activates his unarmed creation with full force. He then creates the dragon scale blade, while the villain is down on the ground. The enemy on the ground smiles and points, saying that's exactly what he wanted to see. He complains that the boy should have used that from the beginning and summons a new weapon. With a victorious smile, the villain wields a giant golden sword that he had prepared. Our hero recognizes the weapon immediately and shouts that it's the legendary Balmung. Seeing the situation, Aion desperately yells for Touma to stop what he's doing. The entity warns that the dragon scale blade won't work against that weapon. The enemy smiles crazily and reveals that his sword is the dragon, slaying light blade. The two blades clash with immense power, and the protagonist is at a clear disadvantage. The hero is cut and thrown back by the force of the impact with no chance to defend himself. Gravely injured, the boy falls while the villain celebrates that the feeling is so good. The villain says that the spirit Aion is being broken while the hero lies on the ground. Suddenly, the enemy starts to scream in pain, feeling a strange power inside him. Aion explains that Balmung is a sword made to hunt the dragon clan and their relatives. The villain realizes he's been tricked, but says the odds are still against the hero and charges forward. But a mysterious figure in a red cape appears out of nowhere and easily blocks the attack. The villain is repelled by a water power and is surprised by the arrival of the new opponent. Seeing the newcomer, the enemy gets a serious look and analyzes him carefully. The redhead appears and thanks Seaweed Head for buying time and calls the villain a mosquito. Lying on the ground and gravely injured, our hero calls out his friend Ryuga's name. With that, the redhead unleashes immense power and fully activates his hellfire armor. The enemy just watches him and calls him an idiot for actually using a technique like that. Aion says the red-haired boy is being reckless with this decision. The entity explains that it will certainly make him stronger, but the price is very high. In a few minutes, that ability will end the Hothy Head's life forever. Upon hearing this, the protagonist is completely shocked and horrified by the revelation. The spirit then notices that Touma's dominant shoulder is severely injured. With his supporting leg hurt and unable to move, the situation seems hopeless. Even so, Aion finds itself wanting to hope that they can get out of this situation. The bluish being says that what always makes Touma strong is the love he feels for others. The hero then calls his friend an idiot and asks who fights like that. With his hand trembling, the boy says that he can still fight too and won't give up. Even all broken, he gets up and continues to fight to protect his comrades. Elsewhere, a group of knights arrives and notices there was a dungeon there before. Looking at the destruction, they wonder what happened and where it went. The group's leader gives his subordinate a frightening look, who is scared to bits. The knight explains that they were sucked in by a celestial hole that appeared out of nowhere. The man with glasses is worried about the situation and whispers the word, knights. In the celestial void, the leader says it's too early for Touma and the others to be there. The leader says he has no other choice and will have to force open the celestial hole. Suddenly, his phone rings and he sees it's a call from Kyoki-san. Kyoki asks Koya not to do anything because Touma and the others can get out on their own. Koya then questions if he knows this because of his power to read fate. The young man explains that this is a divergence point of destiny, and Koya is confused. He says that if Koya helps, everything will be resolved, but it will hinder their growth. The leader gets stressed and asks how he can be so casual in a situation like this. Kyoki says it's all right and reminds Koya that he saw the boy's potential during training. He says the boy surpassed expectations and that his potential is simply immense. Finally, the blonde-haired young man says that because of this, he wants to bet all his chips on them. Back in the fight, the hero is on the ground, while the redhead faces the villain with his body in flames. The Hafed then roars with all his might and unleashes an absurd amount of power. With that, he charges forward and attacks the enemy with a powerful, devastating fire slash. His face contorts in pain and rage, showing how difficult it is to maintain that technique. Seeing the power of the blow, the villain smiles and admits he can't take an attack like that. So he jumps back and easily dodges the red-haired boy's charge. The Hafed's hand begins to burn, and he screams in pain from his ability's recoil. The villain taunts him, saying it's impossible to use a relic without knowing its true name. The redhead ignores the warning and shouts the name, Katrombo, as he prepares to attack. He then launches himself in a vortex of fire towards the enemy, who is surprised by the attack. The redhead hits the villain with everything he has, but the enemy manages to defend himself with his arms. With a smile, the white-haired man says that those prepared to fall are the strongest. The enemy questions if it's worth defeating him, if the Hafed will also perish in the process. With clenched teeth, the red-haired boy tells the villain to shut up right now. In a memory, he promises he will surpass his master and become the #1 S-rank hunter. With his eyes glowing with hatred, he yells that his life is worthless if he loses the fight. The protagonist watches the scene and wonders what motivates his teammates so much. Aion then remembers when it first met the red-haired boy. The entity explains that the Hafed had a love, scent very similar to Touma's. It's the same feeling as when our hero jumped off a building without a second thought, just like the time he fought a giant dragon to protect his sister Suzu. Back then, the boy didn't care about his own life and risked everything to save her. Aion says the redhead seems to be fighting to repay the love he received from someone. Our hero is shocked and breaks into a cold sweat at the bluish spirit's revelation. He then takes a step forward and says that if that's the case, then he needs to act. With a desperate shout, the boy begs his friend to stay alive and not give up. Aion observes that with his leg and arm injured, he can barely swing the sword. So the hero decides that this is a scene to be witnessed, and uses his creation on another relic. With his eyes glowing, he wonders what will be born from this combination of powers. But the power is too much, and our hero's arm explodes with the pressure of the fusion. Aion observes that to connect with a relic, one must understand its heart and feelings. With his arm destroyed, our hero groans in pain on the ground after the power explosion. Suddenly, a relic's voice emerges and asks the boy not to come near it. He recognizes the voice as Gluttony's and is surprised, as he didn't expect this. The spirit then wonders if he has connected with the personality inside the black sword. Tired of everything, the relic complains that it can't stand being thrown away anymore and unleashes an explosion. In a memory, we see that the weapon was always treated as a disposable item by its owners, being used only as a balm and then abandoned. It filled with sadness and anger. The sword screams that it didn't ask to be used and begs to be left alone once and for all. The hero feels all the relic's pain, and his hand trembles as he grips it tightly. Aion wonders how Touma will manage to guide that broken soul with his love, but the boy gives a determined smile and holds the relic even more firmly. He feels Gluttony's aura of sadness and calls its name to try and calm it down. The boy then asks it to cooperate and says that together they can help each other. However, the relic replies that it doesn't care about any of that and that it's not its problem. It then warns that it won't hold back anymore and will attack him with the biggest explosion of all. With an injured face, the protagonist surprises it by saying that it is very kind. He explains that if it wanted to get rid of him, it wouldn't have held back from the start of the fight. The girl inside the sword is left completely speechless and shocked by the revelation. The boy remembers seeing the color of its sadness when Akaris abandoned it and understood everything. He says that it held back because it believed that this time it would be treated the right way. The girl remains silent, seeming moved by the boy's words. With a determined look, he asks her to believe in him one more time and promises not to let go. In response, the relic screams that it will never believe in anyone again. It then tells the boy to shut up and tries to self-destruct with all its might. A gigantic explosion occurs on the battlefield, engulfing both sides of the fight. The villain watches the scene from afar, looking satisfied with the attack's outcome. With his face all burned, the redhead tells the enemy to swallow that explosion. The white-haired man notices a crack in his body and admits it was a good hit, but the Hothid holds him from behind, screaming that he just needs one more hit to win. The villain mockingly praises him for sacrificing his own life for a single crack. He then crushes the attack and reveals that this body was a gift from Master Basilisk. With that, the red-haired boy screams in pain, being completely defeated by the enemy. The villain then says it doesn't matter, because Aion will fix all the damage anyway. With a smile on his face, he prepares to use the spirit's power to heal himself. Holding the redhead, he realizes something is wrong and is a bit confused by the situation. A strange black smoke comes out of the explosion, and the enemy wonders what it is. Then our hero emerges from the smoke, holding the relic and saying he won't let it go. The girl calls him annoying and gross, but deep down, she accepts and tells him to do whatever he wants. With a serious and determined look, the boy simply thanks her for her trust. With the relic in hand, the hero combines the two powers and unleashes his new unarmed creation. A massive explosion occurs, and our hero shouts that he won't let his companion fall. The villain is shocked by the force of the attack, and his body begins to crack from the impact. But the enemy still manages to grab the redhead by the neck and lift him into the air without difficulty. With a shout, the hero unleashes his explosive star blade and charges with full force at the villain. With a determined look, he clenches his teeth and says he will not let Enjo perish no matter what.